Chapter 793. I'm not a beggar. Although Gong Yimo was young and used to enduring, she still had a temper. The little girl laughed when she heard that. I heard that your relatives didn't want your clothes. You're wearing other people's old clothes. If you're not a beggar, then what are you? Gong Yimo tightened her grip on her chopsticks. The new clothes her mother bought for her were all cut up by the young master. Her uncle didn't care, and her mother didn't dare to resist. She had always been wearing old clothes. She was a beggar when she picked up old clothes. She clearly didn't beg. The servants bullied her and didn't help her wash her clothes, but she washed them very cleanly every time. I'm not a beggar. The arrogant little girl laughed. She raised her eyebrows and asked the surrounding classmates, look, she can't even afford a school uniform. She doesn't pay the class fees, doesn't participate in activities, and uses inferior paper and pens. Don't you think she's a beggar? The boys at the side shouted playfully, she's a beggar. Then, the others also shouted one after another. Gong Yimo is a beggar. Pauper. They made funny faces as they spoke, as if they had found an interesting toy. They were all overjoyed. They didn't know that their actions would cause a psychological trauma to the other party. They just thought it was fun. Gong Yimo's face turned red when she heard the teasing from all directions. She really wanted to fight with the little girl in front of her. But if she really did that, the teacher would definitely criticize her, and the young master might take the opportunity to cause trouble. He had always wanted to kick her out of school. She couldn't give him the chance. Therefore, Gong Yimo endured and endured. Ignoring the ridicule in her ears, she clenched her chopsticks so tightly that her small hands almost broke them. The little girl was a little angry when she saw that Gong Yimo was still eating despite being bullied and ignoring her. She walked forward and swept Gong Yimo's plate to the ground. Why are you still eating? You don't deserve to eat with us. Get out. She was overbearing and didn't hold back. She was very pleased when she saw Gong Yimo's clothes stained with vegetable stains. She was just a beggar. Why is the class leader always nice to me? Now that the class leader wasn't here, she had to teach this poor and pedantic person a lesson. However, the people around them also joined in the commotion. They stopped eating and shouted loudly, "Get out! You're not allowed to eat with us in the future. Too dirty." Gong Yimo was stunned by the other party's actions. Coupled with the mockery coming from all directions, she felt so ashamed that she couldn't show her face. Her nose turned sour and her eyes became watery. She really wanted to run out without a care, but she also felt that if she ran out, wouldn't the other party be pleased? Therefore, she gritted her teeth and didn't say a word. She just glared fiercely at the little girl. The commotion shocked the teacher in Gong Yimo's class. When she saw the mess on the ground and Gong Yimo and the others, she could not help but point at Gong Yimo and say fiercely, "It's you again, Gong Yimo. Can't you stop causing trouble? The school is a place to study, not for you to clean up your messes." She scolded Gong Yimo to her face. Her raised eyebrows and impatient face were enough to prove how much she hated this transfer student from the countryside. It was fine if she was poor, but she couldn't keep up with the class's progress and dragged the class's grades down. She even went around causing trouble. I didn't. It's... Hearing the teacher say this, Gong Yimo subconsciously wanted to defend herself. However, before she could finish, the teacher became even angrier. You didn't. You still dare to talk back. The female teacher had high cheekbones and the way she glared was very scary. She glared at Gong Yimo and sneered, "Since you're so disobedient, don't go to class in the afternoon. Follow Auntie and do the cleaning. You're not allowed to go back to class until you're done." Gong Yimo's chest violently rose and fell. It was clearly someone else's fault. Why was she the one who was punished every time? Her eyes were red, like a little beast that had endured to the extreme. She wanted to argue with the teacher loudly, but her throat was choked and she couldn't say a word. However, when the surrounding students saw that the teacher was upholding justice, they all looked at her mockingly. Their gazes made her feel extremely humiliated. The differences between people were reflected to the extreme at this moment. Did you hear that? Gong Yimo didn't say anything, so the teacher yelled at her again. Her gaze was even fiercer. Gong Yimo clenched her fists tightly. She wanted to run away without a care, but she couldn't. She couldn't give up on studying here. Therefore, her lips trembled as she held back all her tears and finally said in a hoarse voice, "I heard that." The female teacher was still unwilling to give up. She wanted to talk to the principal about the title while they were having lunch. In the end, she was dragged over, so she was already angry. Louder. Are you dissatisfied with the teacher? Gong Yimo lowered her head deeply and her whole body tensed up. The female teacher snorted coldly, "It's fine if you're poor, but you're still causing trouble. You're young, but you have a lot of thoughts. Go wipe the floor. Just looking at you makes me annoyed. What are you saying, you bitch?" Heaven and earth could be witnesses. This was the first time in his life that Kim Yoon cursed, but he really couldn't hold it in. Especially when he pushed through the crowd and saw Gong Yimo huddled in a corner, being bullied by a group of people. His eyes turned red, and almost without thinking, he pulled the female teacher up. He really wanted to give this damn woman a good beating. Otherwise, the anger in his heart would have nowhere to vent. However, after many years of self-restraint, he didn't do such a thing. However, the female teacher was so frightened by Kim Yoon's raging anger that her legs turned to jelly. So much so that when Kim Yoon let go of her, she felt weak all over and sat on the ground. At that moment, she looked up and realized that the other party was looking at her as if he was looking at a dead person. How frustrating. If he was still the emperor now, someone would have dragged this woman out and punished her. Kim Yoon glared at her coldly. He reached out and pulled Gong Yimo into his arms. "Don't be afraid," he was trembling as he patted Gong Yimo's back. At that moment, Gong Yimo finally couldn't help but raise her head and stare blankly at Kim Yoon in front of her. Her eyes were red, and the tip of her nose was also red. It was obvious that she was holding back her tears, but she didn't make a sound. Seeing her like this made Kim Yoon feel as if his heart had been stabbed with a knife. He forcefully pressed Gong Yimo's head against his chest, the anger in his heart raging. With a sweep of his gaze, everyone in the entire space was stunned by the surging anger on his body. "Damn it, all of you listen to me. She's my sister. If you bully her again, I'll make you pay with your lives." He had forgotten that this was the modern era, but he just wanted everyone who bullied him or to die. At that moment, he didn't realize that the little person in his arms trembled, and her chest was quickly covered in tears. The teacher was stunned. Because the eldest young master's words carried a lot of weight. In this school, the Kim family was the biggest shareholder. Chapter 794. And who could tell her what was going on? She was just a commoner in her class. How could she have anything to do with this bad-tempered young master? The children around them were even more frightened by Kim Yoon. Their senses were more sensitive. How could they, as teenagers, have ever seen Kim Yoon's murderous aura? A few children were scared to tears by Kim Yoon's gaze. But they didn't dare to cry out loud. When the teacher saw Kim Yoon so angry, she realized that she had to do something. Otherwise, her job title, young master, she had just gotten up and wanted to smile and say that it was all a misunderstanding. Who knew that she would be pushed away by Kim Yoon? He looked at this woman coldly. The coldness in his eyes was almost tangible. People like you don't deserve to be a teacher. How dare you touch my little sister? Very well, then from tomorrow onwards, you don't have to come anymore. As he spoke, he hugged Gong Yimo and left. The female teacher was shocked and her eyes were filled with fear. She had spent so much effort to get into this school. How could she be fired just like that? Young master, listen to me. The female teacher wanted to chase after him in a panic, but she was stopped by two people who suddenly appeared in the crowd. They were the young master's hidden servants. Hearing the young master's order, they ignored the female teacher's struggle and pulled her to the principal's office. After Kim Yoon pulled Gong Yimo out, he still felt that his anger was not vented. However, firing her was too easy on that woman. And who was the one who started this? He had to investigate later. Who dared to bully his amour? She must be tired of living. After secretly crying, Gong Yimo felt much better. As Kim Yoon pulled her along tightly, her chest felt like it was stuffed with something. She didn't know what to do. When Kim Yoon brought Gong Yimo to a small pavilion, the lunch placed by the servants was already a little cold. Originally, he had gone to look for Amour after class to have lunch with her. However, he didn't expect to see her being bullied. He was so angry that he was full. Sit down. Kim Yoon's tone was a little bad because he was still thinking about that group of children. They were not good people either. In Yuheng, 12 or 13 years old, was already an adult. How could they be so stupid as to follow the trend and bully a little girl? At this moment, Kim Yoon was completely biased to the extent that a 12-year-old was an adult while his baby was still a child. Gong Yimo quickly sat down. Regardless of the reason, she was very grateful to the young master. Thinking about it, he instructed the servants. Ask the cafeteria's chef. Ask the servants, he said, go and ask the cafeteria's chef, and warm a cup of milk. He had no choice but to put up with it. He had never eaten in the canteen before. Gong Yimo suddenly realized that the other party was ordering food for her. She quickly said, I'll eat cold. With that, she quickly picked up the chopsticks in front of her and put a prawn into her mouth. Kim Yoon was a little stunned. Gong Yimo glanced at him as she ate, mainly because she didn't want to trouble him. Kim Yoon sighed. He really couldn't understand why the original owner didn't like such an obedient and sensible girl. Gong Yimo saw that Kim Yoon was staring at her. She couldn't help but slow down her eating. Because she had secretly cried before, she looked at him with her big red eyes and said carefully, these dishes are all warm. You, young master, eat them too. In the end, this girl had always been someone who didn't hold grudges. If someone treated her well, she would remember it. She was clearly afraid, but she would still remind him to eat. Kim Yoon was very touched. He really wanted to hold her in his arms and feed her mouthfuls of food. But now was not the time. Their relationship had finally improved. He couldn't scare her. However, as long as he worked hard, that day would definitely come. Thinking of this, Kim Yoon was instantly filled with energy. He picked up his chopsticks and started eating. Gong Yimo secretly breathed a sigh of relief. As soon as she finished speaking, she regretted it. She was afraid that the young master would suddenly turn hostile. Today's young master was really abnormal, but in her heart, she hoped that he would continue to be so. Lunch ended in this rare warmth. Gong Yimo didn't say anything. No matter why the young master helped her today, she was very touched. However, this didn't mean that she wasn't afraid of him. After all, the young master was known for being unpredictable. After lunch, Gong Yimo prepared to go back. Her studies couldn't keep up with the students here. If she didn't work hard, she would be even more behind. Therefore, when the others were resting in the afternoon, she was reading. But how could Kim Yoon let her go? He spent the whole morning combining the memories in his mind and coming up with a plan. Now that Immerse's attitude towards him had softened, he naturally wanted to strike while the iron was hot. Therefore, when Gong Yimo whispered that she should go back, Kim Yoon directly took her away. Skipping classes was a common thing for the young master, but for Gong Yimo, it was the first time. If it was in the past, she would definitely resist. Because studying was different from other things. It was a matter of principle that she couldn't tolerate. But today, eldest young master had helped her, so she agreed to return the favor. Therefore, the satisfied Kim Yoon brought the little girl Gong Yimo to the biggest international venue in High City. Then, they started shopping. Although he had only been in this world for a day, Kim Yoon felt that he had never been so happy. Immerse was here. Immerse was his. He could treat her well, watch her grow up, and then eat her up. Thinking of this, Kim Yoon blushed. He had been a virgin his whole life. In this aspect, even if he was the world's #1 beauty and had been in countless brothels, he was still very pure. In order to hide the impulse in his heart, he worked even harder to buy clothes. When shopping, he didn't agree with the aesthetics of the bare arms and legs. But because he had completely merged his memories, he could accept it. Moreover, when he thought of these clothes on Immerse, no. Stop fantasizing. Gong Yimo, on the other hand, was constantly pushed into the fitting room to try on clothes. As long as she was wearing something, Jin Yoon would take a second look at it and buy it with a wave of his hand. The salespeople in the branded store all knew the young master. This young master was already very rich when he bought clothes for his girlfriend. But now, he was practically going to heaven for his sister. At this moment, Kim Yoon picked out a few clothes from the rack and threw them to the salesperson. Then, he pointed at the clothes on the rack and said, "I don't want the clothes in your hands. Wrap up the rest." The salesperson was speechless. Their store was really a big brand. Ordinary people would be overcautious when buying clothes. "Young master, is it really okay for you to be like this?" At this moment, Gong Yimo changed into a light yellow dress and walked out. She said timidly, "I'm done changing." There was no choice. Gong Yimo was also stunned by the other party's inhumane wealth. She didn't know what to do. Kim Yoon turned his head and his eyes instantly lit up. Chapter 795. Gong Yimo was good-looking to begin with, and her skin was fair. At this moment, she was wearing a ponytail, revealing her bright forehead and gray eyebrows. Her big, sparkling eyes, cute little nose, and bright red lips made her look extremely adorable even though she was frowning. The front of her dress had a lotus leaf design, which accentuated the size of her newly developed breasts. It also tightened her waist, making her waist look slim. The sleeveless design revealed her fair and well-proportioned arms. The skirt ended at her knees, revealing a pair of long, straight legs that were so fair and tender that it pierced the eyes of others. Couldn't she be any better? Kim Yoon felt his heart beating very fast. It was such a blissful thing to be able to completely possess the beauty of his beloved at every age. His gaze gradually became fervent, and he looked at Gong Yimo with a deep desire. Gong Yimo felt it and took half a step back in fear. Then, she heard Kim Yoon sigh softly. "Are there any other colors for this dress?" Kim Yoon asked softly. The salesperson said, "There's also sky blue, pink, and white." "Okay, pack them all up and send them to the Jean residence." "Yes, young master." The salesperson left happily. It would be great if she could meet such a big customer every day. Gong Yimo frowned. Young master had already bought her a lot of clothes. Although she didn't know why he wanted to do so, her protests were useless, but she couldn't wear so many clothes. Moreover, she was still growing. It would be a waste to buy too many clothes. Kim Yoon seemed to have guessed what Gong Yimo was thinking. He smiled and walked closer. Then, he mustered up a lot of courage to hold her hand. Sure enough, the moment he touched her, he felt Gong Yimo's hand tremble, and she instinctively wanted to withdraw her hand. But how could Kim Yoon allow that? He squatted down and looked up at Gong Yimo. His hand held her hand tightly, and he used a lot of strength. He had wanted to do this for a long, long time. He had regretted it countless times. If he had held her hand back then and not let her go, perhaps they wouldn't have ended up like this. Now that the heavens had given him this opportunity, he would definitely not let it go. Kim Yoon raised his eyes and looked at Gong Yimo intently. In his eyes, there was a strong feeling that she could not understand, but that made her want to escape. Immerse. He called out softly, only to see the little girl's face turn pale. I want to protect you from today onwards. You don't need to feel burdened. You just need to enjoy everything I give you. Gong Yimo did not understand, but the place where he held her was burning. The other party was too close, and the emotions he displayed were too heavy, making her want to retreat. Although Gong Yimo was not disgusted, she was still trying her best to withdraw her hand. Kim Yoon secretly exerted force and pulled her forward. The two of them were even closer to each other. Gong Yimo gasped. She lowered her head and looked at the young master squatting in front of her. Her mind was in a mess. Fear, worry, and something else made her heart pound. She did not want the beautiful clothes. She wanted to escape. Immerse. Kim Yoon suddenly smiled. His soul had changed, and his smile became gentler, making the other party less resistant. He pressed on step by step. Call me Big Brother. At this moment, in front of outsiders, this was a scene of an older brother teasing his younger sister. But in Gong Yimo's heart, this was simply like a dream. Last night, this person even slapped her. But today, seeing Gong Yimo's eyes turn red, Kim Yoon could not bear it. But he did not want to wait any longer. He had waited his whole life. He had missed her whole life. This time, with her here, he would not give in at all. Call me Big Brother. Call me Big Brother and I'll let you go, okay? As he spoke, he squeezed her hand. Gong Yimo was forced to the point of tears. He was clearly the same person, why was he so different? She was so afraid. If she called him Big Brother, would he laugh out loud and say that this was all a prank? Would he say that she was delusional and that everything today was fake? Seeing that she was really resistant, Kim Yoon closed his eyes and did not continue to force her. Forget it, he still had a long, long time, anyway, Immerse was his. Everything was his. Kim Yoon thought as he slowly got up. Then, he suddenly pulled Gong Yimo and kissed her forehead. His movements were very fast. No one thought much of it. It was just a kiss on the forehead. How loving. But Gong Yimo and Kim Yoon were stunned. That warm and careful touch made the two of them nervous. Gong Yimo did not expect that he would kiss her. And Kim Yoon did not expect that he would actually kiss the woman he loved. All of this was like a dream. Seeing that Gong Yimo did not know what to do, he slowly smiled. If this was a dream, he did not want to wake up for the rest of his life. He must monopolize all of her beauty. He would not let anyone know at all. Then, he pulled the confused Gong Yimo and continued to shop. From the 3rd floor to the 7th floor, there were all famous shops suitable for young girls. But these were not enough. Kim Yoon knew that his clothes were all specially designed. When the time came, he could dress Immerse up differently. How could his one and only treasure wear the same clothes as others? After buying the clothes, he bought the shoes. Then, he brought Gong Yimo to do her hair. These were all memories left by the original body. He was very satisfied with these memories. Otherwise, as an outsider, he would not be able to dress up his princess. In a private styling shop, Kim Yoon handed her over to the head stylist. Seeing that Gong Yimo wanted to resist but did not dare to act rashly, Kim Yoon's heart softened. Then, he sat on the sofa and waited while flipping through a magazine. He could understand the words of this world. The memories left by the original body were very useful. But when he touched it personally, the feeling was very strange. At this time, he suddenly raised his head and saw a mirror. In his bedroom, there was a large mercury mirror. It was different from this mirror, but this mirror was clearly clearer. His current appearance was clearly reflected in the mirror. He had only been here for a day and did not have time to take a good look at his appearance. In the mirror, he was undoubtedly very handsome. In the past, the original body had a rebellious personality and his eyes were filled with emptiness. But after Kim Yoon came, his eyes became deep and silent, which made his appearance more beautiful. Also, he looked carefully. This face was similar to his. His previous face was too beautiful, and this face seemed to be adjusted from his original face. His eyebrows were thicker, his eyes were deeper, and his facial features were more three-dimensional and stylish. But it did not give him a sense of unfamiliarity. In short, he was very satisfied with his current appearance. At this time, the door opened and a regular customer came in. It was a great beauty. When she saw Kim Yoon, she said in surprise, "7 luminaries. You're here too." Then, she came forward and whispered, "Why didn't you pick up the phone? Are you still angry with me?" Chapter 796. Upon seeing her, Kim Yoon's eyebrows twitched. He knew that it wouldn't be so easy to take over someone else's body. The original owner of this body was very childish. Because he was unhappy with having a sister who was a burden, he took in a bunch of sisters outside. The one in front of him was one of his favorite sisters, his junior from the same school, Lee Wire. No, he had to draw the line quickly. Kim Yoon frowned and said coldly, "Please don't bother me in the future. We don't know each other that well." His cold and heartless words stunned Lee Wire. All her smiles froze on her face. Her family was only moderately rich. Sending her to this school was already pushing it. If she hadn't hooked up with her brother, Jin Chiao, she wouldn't have been able to have so many branded clothes and bags, let alone go to this kind of place. Every time she came, she used Jin Chiao's card, okay? Moreover, Jin Chiao liked her, independent and obedient, the most. He seemed to be interested in her as well. Recently, she felt a little smug because eldest young master treated her differently. A few days ago, she threw a tantrum because of his pampering. After that, she called him, but he didn't pick up. She thought that he was still angry, but she didn't expect it to reach this stage. The eldest young master was too unpredictable. "Brother Jean. How can you say that?" Lee Wire frowned and looked sad. "I didn't do it on purpose last time." "You." "Brother, don't be angry. It wasn't like this in the past." Kim Yoon was impatient. "Please disappear from my sight immediately." His words were a bit harsh. Lee Wire had never seen him so fierce before. She immediately burst into tears and shouted with tears streaming down her cheeks. "Brother! You don't want me anymore." At this time, Gong Emo was also dressed up. Her long hair was slightly curled and fluffy by the stylist. She wore a light yellow dress and a pair of light green leather shoes. Her whole person looked like a doll from the closet. She was incredibly beautiful. She was originally happy. After all, which girl didn't like to be beautiful? But the moment he came out, he saw the scene of LeVire crying and calling for her brother, and the young master's face was filled with impatience. Her small face paled. She had almost forgotten that the young master had many god-sisters. Those people usually bullied her because of the young master's attitude. Now that the young master suddenly wanted to raise her as a sister, it was very likely that it was just a whim, just like the other god-sisters. Now that LeVire was crying, Gong Yimo's heart gradually turned cold. Gong Yimo, oh Gong Yimo, wake up. How could Jin Qiao be sincere to you? If you take it seriously, one day you will end up like LeVire. Therefore, Gong Yimo put away the joy in her heart and walked out with a cold expression. When Kim Yoon saw Gong Yimo, his eyes lit up. So this is the feeling of doting on your sweetheart. It's wonderful. He immediately left LeVire aside and walked over with large strides. Amour. He admired her from head to toe. You're so beautiful. Brother likes you very much. Once she heard Kim Yoon's words, LeVire understood everything. She was wondering why the young master had changed. It turned out that he had fallen in love with someone else. And the other party was the burden that the young master hated the most in the past. She couldn't help but take a few steps forward and cry, "Brother Jean. Why are you ignoring me? Also, why is she here? Even if you want to teach me a lesson, you shouldn't do this." Kim Yoon really didn't know where this person's confidence came from. At this moment, the chief designer was at the side. When he saw LeVire crying, he felt a headache coming on. "Dill, can anyone enter your place now?" Kim Yoon glanced at him with an indifferent expression. His time was very precious, and he didn't care about any Tom, Dick, or Harry. When Deer heard the young master's words, how could he not understand that LeVire had fallen out of favor? What a pity. In the past, when she brought her friends here and swiped the young master's card, it brought him a lot of profit. But now that she had fallen out of favor, it was a different story. "I understand. Young master, please wait a moment." Then he said to LeVire, who was still crying, "Miss, you're not welcome here. Please leave." LeVire was stunned. She had always been a regular here, and Deer had never spoken to her like this. She was angry and said angrily, "Deer, what do you mean by this? You're actually driving the guests out?" Deer shrugged, "I can't help it. You're not a member here." LeVire saw that Kim Yoon was circling around Gong Yimo, and didn't even look at her, and said loudly, "Can't I get a membership myself? Could it be that you want to drive the guests out?" Her voice was very loud and had already disturbed the other guests. Deer frowned. Originally, he didn't want to embarrass the other party. After all, the other party was still a student. But if she wanted to embarrass herself, then there was no other way. "Of course you can spend money, but our secret club's annual membership fee is 1 million. If you're sure you want to recharge, please come here." In an instant, LeVire's expression turned pale. She knew that the membership fee here was very expensive, but she didn't expect it to be expensive to this extent. Kim Yoon was very satisfied with Gong Yimo's appearance, and pulled her out. LeVire saw that the surrounding guests were secretly looking at her, and she didn't want to stay and embarrass herself, so she quickly chased after them. Kim Yoon carefully let Gong Yimo sit in the car, but when he got in the car, he was stopped by LeVire. She said with tears in her eyes, Brother, I was wrong. Don't treat me like this," she cried very beautifully. She believed that she was special in the young master's heart. Kim Yoon frowned, pulled back his hand, and impatiently kept a distance from her. What kind of taste did the original owner have? He was willing to spoil such a girl. "You'd better disappear from my sight before I get angry." Kim Yoon held the car door and looked at her coldly. He wasn't wearing any messy clothes today, and he didn't have a messy hairstyle. He was wearing a white cotton shirt and black trousers, and he was standing there like a pine tree, dazzling everyone's eyes. Lee Wire felt ashamed when she saw him like this. She couldn't help but pull back her hand, but she was still unwilling to give up. Is it because of her? She stared at Gong Yimou, who was in the car, and her teary eyes were almost spitting fire. Kim Yoon glanced at her. No. Then what is it? Lee Wire didn't want to let it go, but Kim Yoon had already sat in the car. Because you and I are not the same kind of people. Please remember, you have no right to talk to me. No matter if it was in his previous life or now, he was always in a high position. What was Lee Wire? She was just a toy. Seeing Kim Yoon slamming the car door and leaving, Lee Wire felt a great humiliation. She and he were not the same kind of people, then how could Gong Yimou, who came from the countryside, be more noble than her? Damn Gong Yimou. Let's wait and see. Chapter 797. It had to be said that in Kim Yoon's heart, Gong Yimou was the supreme princess. She was even nobler than himself. This scene was really disappointing, but Gong Yimou was sitting obediently beside him, which made him very happy. He remembered that he still had to bring Mo to buy a cell phone. The cell phones in this world were really good things. This way, he could contact Mo anytime and anywhere. At this moment, he realized that Gong Yimou was a little too quiet. She sat quietly in the back seat. Her face was pale, like a soulless doll. Kim Yoon was suddenly a little anxious. Did he do something wrong just now? He had clearly drawn a clear line with her, but why did Mo look a little unhappy? Could it be that she despised him for being too gentle and not decisive enough? Mo He looked at Gong Yimou's side profile and asked carefully, "Are you unhappy?" Kim Yoon had no experience in pleasing his sweetheart at all. Seeing that Gong Yimou was unhappy, he panicked a little. Gong Yimou did not expect young master to care about her thoughts. She pursed her lips and knew that she had better not be ungrateful. So she said softly, "No, I'm not unhappy." "You are." Kim Yoon was very sure. He suddenly said to the driver, "Stop the car. Get out." When the driver heard this, he thought that young master was going to get angry, so he hurriedly stopped the car by the side and ran out. Kim Yoon then said softly to Gong Yimou, whose face was even paler, "Mo, why are you unhappy?" Gong Yimou knew that she should tolerate it, but when she saw that Kim Yoon kept asking, she did not know where her anger came from. She raised her head and looked at Kim Yoon coldly. "Why are you calling me Mo, Kim Yoon was stunned. Could he say that he wanted to be close to her, so even if it was just a name, he wanted to reveal intimacy? Kim Yoon glared at her. He looked the same as before, but Gong Yimou couldn't feel a trace of his fierceness. She became bolder and raised her voice to ask. "Also, why are you standing up for me? Don't you like to see others bully me? Why did you buy things for me? Why? Do you want me to call you brother?" Kim Yoon did not know how to explain it. Then, he saw Gong Yimou's eyes grow darker and darker. "I know, this is your new plan. Pamper me, dote on me, and when I rely on you wholeheartedly, take it all away, and make me lose everything again. How much do you hate me? That's why I came up with this." She did not finish her sentence because Kim Yoon really did not know how to explain it. He saw that Gong Yimou's eyes were gradually becoming watery, and he panicked. He kissed Gong Yimou's lips without thinking. It was as if something exploded in his mind. At this moment, Kim Yoon stared at Gong Yimou with his eyes wide open. In both his previous and current lives, he finally kissed the person he loved the most. His heart was beating so fast that he forgot his original intention. He forgot everything. He only felt that her lips were small, soft, and sweet, just like the taste of jelly in his memory. Gong Yimou did not expect Kim Yoon to kiss her at all. However, because she lacked common sense, she did not know the difference between this kiss and her mother's kiss. She only felt nervous. Her eyes were wide open. But she did not dare to move. Even when Kim Yoon bit her lips, she did not dare to move. Their breathing became erratic, and they seemed to have forgotten to think. In the end, when the two of them separated, their faces were bright red. Gong Yimou did not know why she was blushing. There was nothing wrong with a brother kissing his sister, but didn't young master hate her a lot? Today was the second time he had kissed her. Kim Yoon, on the other hand, was excited, happy, embarrassed, and many other emotions mixed together. He knew that in this world, Mo was still a child. He should not have done that, he could not do that in the future. He had to take it slow and raise Mo until she was an adult. There was a strange silence in the car. Kim Yoon guessed that Mo, at her age, would not understand what he had just done. He coughed and purposely skipped the awkwardness as he spoke softly. I suddenly felt that you were very cute, so I treated you well. He weighed his words carefully and tried his best to convince her. You deserve me to treat you well, so I want to give you the best in the world. I was wrong in the past. If you don't believe me, you can test me. After all, time does not lie. No one can always pretend, right? His words were still very persuasive, reasonable, and gentle. However, Gong Yimou was still very surprised because young master had never spoken to her so patiently before. He had also never treated her so well. He even apologized to her and said that he was wrong in the past. Gong Yimou bit her lip and hesitated. After all, everything was too sudden. Her lower lip was fleshy. When she bit it, Kim Yoon held his breath again. He could not help but miss the kiss just now. When she bit her lip, it was so soft and bouncy. He suddenly felt that staying by the side of the person he loved and waiting for her to grow up was a very painful thing. Gong Yimou thought that as long as she stayed true to herself, even if all of this was young master's prank, she would not lose anything. At most, there would be a slight difference. However, compared to what she would gain, wouldn't it? After all, with young master like this, her life would be much better. Just then, Kim Yoon asked softly, what do you think? If you agree, from today onwards, we will be good siblings. He prepared himself mentally. In the end, he could not resist and gently held her hand. Kim Yoon lowered his eyes. His voice was hoarse and there was a sweet ambiguity in the car. Let me pamper you, okay? Gong Yimou's little hand moved uneasily. She looked up at Kim Yoon, her long eyelashes fluttering nervously. The redness on her little face had yet to fade. She was so cute that he wanted to take a bite out of her. Kim Yoon seemed to be bewitched as he moved closer to her. The two of them were only inches apart. Looking at her delicate little mouth, Kim Yoon's Adam's apple bobbed as he asked again. Give me a chance to pamper you, okay? I will treat you well. More. Gong Yimou became nervous because the other party was really too close. She could feel the other party's scorching body temperature, as if the air in the car was burning. The other party's gaze was too intense. She lowered her head. She said softly, then, will you still kiss me? Kim Yoon was stunned. Then, he said uneasily and embarrassedly, you don't like it when I kiss you? But what could he do? He liked it very, very much. Gong Yimou blinked and was a little embarrassed. No, Kim Yoon quickly asked. Chapter 798. I don't hate you, Gong Yimo said shyly. Kim Yoon heaved a sigh of relief. Hearing Gong Yimo's soft voice, he could not help but ask, Then can I still kiss you in the future? Gong Yimo could not help but glare at him. Then, she realized that Kim Yoon really cared about this answer. His beautiful eyes were wide open, and he looked like a big dog. Gong Yimo was amused by her own imagination. She nodded. All right, I'll let you kiss me. She looked especially beautiful when she smiled. This was also the first time she smiled in front of Kim Yoon. Kim Yoon could not help but stare at her in a daze. However, after laughing for a while, she suddenly felt that she was getting carried away and quickly stopped laughing. Her big eyes flashed with annoyance. How could she let down her guard so quickly? The other party was the young master. Kim Yoon saw Gong Yimo covering her mouth with her hand. Her annoyed look was so adorable that it could explode. He quickly put his arm around her shoulder and smiled. Don't be so nervous. Laugh if you want to. Say whatever you want to say. It's okay. Gong Yimo was pulled into his embrace. She could not help but look up and ask softly. But what if I say something and you get angry? He did not feel disgusted when Gong Yimo was so close to him. It could be said that their relationship had taken a qualitative leap. Kim Yoon quickly promised. I won't. I will definitely not be angry with you. Gong Yimo pouted. She thought to herself, you're the most unpredictable. You even hit me yesterday. However, she was indeed not a person who held grudges. The eldest young master treated her very badly. She remembered how he treated her badly and wanted to stay away from him. However, she had almost forgotten all the bad details. Now, she only remembered that she was slapped last night because the eldest young master was in a bad mood. Seeing that Gong Yimo did not speak, Kim Yoon felt a little guilty. He touched Gong Yimo's face and spoke as if telepathically. It was my fault last night. Can you call me back? Gong Yimo widened her eyes. Her meaning was obvious. How did you know what I was thinking? She was beautiful, and now that she was dressed up delicately, she was simply too adorable. Kim Yoon held her in his arms again and rubbed her for a while before he said with a warm smile. Come, let me hit you. Seeing that Gong Yimo didn't move, Kim Yoon grabbed her hand and slapped himself on the face. It was quite a loud slap. At least Gong Yimo felt pain in her hand. Gong Yimo was stunned. They were really fighting. Kim Yoon saw that she was in a daze. No matter how much he spoiled her, it didn't hurt at all when he hit her face. However, Gong Yimo subconsciously reached out and rubbed his head. She blinked her eyes and said uneasily. You really hit me, Kim Yoon laughed. It doesn't hurt. At this moment, the adoration in his eyes was almost tangible. Whenever he thought about how he could raise the woman he loved, pamper her, love her, and hide her away, he felt especially satisfied. God was so good to him. He didn't wait for a lifetime in vain. The eyes couldn't lie. Hence, Gong Yimo looked into his eyes and truly received his adoration. She was the kind of person who would definitely repay others for their kindness. Hence, she thought for a while and kissed Kim Yoon's face where he had been slapped. Does this make you feel better? Kim Yoon's eyes lit up. Then, he said with some grievance. I suddenly feel a little pain. Can you kiss me again? Gong Yimo, young master, had become so strange. At this moment she suddenly realized something and said, Young master. Why is there a mole near your eye? It wasn't there just now. Why did it appear after a kiss? Kim Yoon felt her soft fingers touch the cinnabar mole at the corner of his eye. She said with certainty. It wasn't there before. It's even red. Kim Yoon was shocked. Could it be that after he took over this body, his appearance would slowly merge with his previous appearance? He grabbed her hand and chuckled. You're still calling me young master? His smile was very gentle and had a hint of charm. That cinnabar mole made his face even more exquisite. His three-dimensional features revealed a charm that belonged only to Kim Yoon. This charm had once mesmerized everyone in the world. Naturally, little Gong Yimo was mesmerized as well. She couldn't help but blush again. Her gaze was somewhat evasive as she looked elsewhere. Kim Yoon felt that teasing her was especially fun. He hugged her soft and fragrant body and whispered into her ear. Call me Big Brother, HM. The word HM made her heart itch. Gong Yimo was so seduced that she didn't dare to move. Call young master Big Brother. She didn't dare. Who knew if young master would suddenly change back? He would definitely be angry if she called him Big Brother. However, Kim Yoon didn't give up. He enjoyed the unique fragrance of his beloved woman while secretly laughing at her struggling appearance. So blissful, so blissful. Call me Big Brother. As Kim Yoon said, his hand subconsciously pinched her waist. Gong Yimo's whole body instantly jumped. Itchy. She was extremely ticklish. Kim Yoon suddenly seemed to have found an interesting toy. He took the opportunity to carry Gong Yimo onto his lap. He didn't allow her to run away while he mischievously tickled her. Call me Big Brother. Call me Big Brother and I'll let you go. Gong Yimo couldn't stand this. She struggled and said repeatedly, Big Brother. Big Brother. Stop tickling. As she spoke, she wanted to get off his body. How could Kim Yoon bear to do that? With her warm and fragrant body in his arms, he felt like he was floating. He continued tickling her and then said softly, Stay with Big Brother from now on, okay? Okay. Okay, okay. Gong Yimo laughed until tears came out, but she couldn't break free. As she laughed, she looked at him with a pitiful expression. Seeing this, Kim Yoon's heart softened and itched unbearably. That terrifying possessiveness instantly occupied Kim Yoon's entire vision. He hugged Gong Yimo tightly. He couldn't wait to merge her into his flesh and blood. No matter what happens in the future, don't leave Big Brother, okay? Gong Yimo was just tormented by him and then hugged again. She felt a little strange, but still said obediently. Okay. Unexpectedly, Kim Yoon hugged her even tighter. You'll only like Big Brother from now on, okay? Gong Yimo blinked. Even mommy can't like you. Kim Yoon released her slightly. He looked into her eyes and said seriously, Big Brother is right. You'll only like Big Brother as a man, okay? Gong Yimo tilted her head slightly. She didn't quite understand. The two of them were so close. Kim Yoon couldn't help it. He held his breath and kissed her gently on the lips. He didn't dare to go deeper because she was too young. However, this kind of intimacy was so sweet that it could drive him crazy. After a long while, he finally let go of her while panting. His dark gaze locked onto her blushing and dazed little face. Like this, you'll only kiss Big Brother, okay? Chapter 799. Gong Yimo looked puzzled. However, since young master was being so nice, she decided to go along with it. Otherwise, she would be the one at a disadvantage. Hence, she nodded her head in a daze and sold herself out. Alright, I'll only let you kiss me. Who am I? Jin Yun grabbed her hand and bit it gently on the side of his lips, asking mischievously. Gong Yimo frowned and became serious like a little adult. Kim Yoon forced her to take that step towards him and asked again. Who am I? In the cramped space, his gentle voice made her feel oppressed for no reason. Gong Yimo was finally defeated. Brother, Kim Yoon instantly revealed a smile. Is so obedient. Come, call me again. Brother. Gong Yimo was against it. However. Alright, this was the first time someone was so nice and gentle to her. It was normal that she couldn't reject it. Is so obedient. Kim Yoon hugged Gong Yimo and enjoyed it with his eyes closed. He knew that he didn't want to be her brother, but this was already the most intimate identity he could think of. Moreover, used to call him brother Kim Yoon. Now that she called him brother again, he actually had an indescribable impulse. There was also a taboo joy that made his soul tremble. After hugging for a while, Gong Yimo felt a little uncomfortable. She moved a little and asked in a soft voice. Brother, can we go home for dinner? Her big eyes observed Kim Yoon's expression without blinking to confirm if he really didn't mind. Kim Yoon looked at her deeply. That kind of focus made it seem as if she was the only one in the world. He smiled gently and pinched Gong Yimo's face. Alright, let's go home. Perhaps it was because his smile was too good-looking, or perhaps it was because his tone was very gentle. At that moment, Gong Yimo could hear the sound of her heart thumping. The Jean residence was brightly lit. The master and madam were on a business trip, but the servants didn't dare to relax. Without the master, the young master, that little tyrant, was even harder to serve. However, when Kim Yoon returned, everyone's eyes widened. Because the young master came in holding the hand of the burden. Moreover, the burden had changed greatly. She looked just like a little princess. Could it be that the young master's personality changed? No, this must be the young master's new way to prank her. Seeing that the young master had returned, he said, Young master, the master and madam are on a business trip and will only return for a week. Master. Master asked you. He carefully observed Kim's face. Speak. Jin Yun glanced at him. The sudden appearance of Qinghua's aura stunned the butler. He said young master at home, master, young with young master, young master. He thought that Kim Yoon would be angry, but Kim Yoon's expression was indifferent. After being an emperor his whole life, he could only hide his emotions in front of Got it. I need you to do something for me. The noble aura that seemed to come from his bones made the butler lower his head. I'll do as you say, young master. But what he was thinking was, why did the young master seem to have changed? This aura was somewhat similar to the noble aura of the old master who had passed away. Help me change my name. Kim Yoon, the Yunnan promise, remember. The butler was puzzled. This matter wasn't a big deal, but it wasn't a small one either. Their family had a genealogy, and changing the name would require a lot of changes. However, when he saw Kim Yoon's indifferent expression, his heart trembled. Yes, I'll do it right away. Kim Yoon nodded in satisfaction and pulled Gong Yimo inside. Gong Yimo was puzzled. Why do you want to change your name? After a day of intimate interaction, Gong Yimo was finally willing to take the initiative to talk to him. This was really a good sign. Kim Yoon pursed his lips and smiled. His noble aura instantly turned into a romantic one. He said softly, do you think that Kim Yoon sounds nice? Gong Yimo repeated it a few times and nodded. It sounds very gentle. She liked the gentle young master. As long as you like it. The servants who were waiting at the side were stunned. Was this really the young master? Was he possessed by something? Kim Yoon naturally knew what they were thinking. He didn't want to overdo it, so he glanced at everyone and spoke in his original tone. From today onwards, this young master has decided to be a good brother. If you don't treat him don't blame this young master for being rude. Everyone's doubts were dispelled. It turned out that the young master was acting on a whim and wanted to play the brother game. They didn't know how long he could last, but they couldn't show it. They all agreed obediently, but they were still disdainful of Gong Yimou. Kim Yoon narrowed his eyes, but he knew that going too far was as bad as falling short. After a long time, these people would naturally know that Mo was his favorite and couldn't be bullied. However, in order to let these people understand, during dinner, he very seriously and carefully served Gong Emo. She was flattered as she ate. She always felt that the young master's abnormality would only worsen. After dinner, she decided to take a shower to calm down. In the bathroom, she carefully thought about what happened today. Although she was young, she wasn't stupid. With such a huge change, it wouldn't be right to say that the young master had other intentions. Then why? Did he really want to play the brother game on a whim? Would he continue to be so gentle? Gong Yimou couldn't help but think of the young master's extremely doting eyes. Then, she fiercely splashed water on her face. Gong Yimou. You mustn't fall into his trap. It's only been a day. The young master might stop playing after a few days. With this kind of feeling, little Gong Yimou showered for a long time before she slowly came out. In the end, she saw something the moment she came out. She saw the eldest young master in her room. Kim Yoon was flipping through a book when he heard the sound. When he looked up, his brain instantly crashed. Gong Yimou stood there in a daze, looking at him with a pair of big watery eyes. An extremely large pink towel covered her head. Her long black hair was half-dried and drooped down in little curls. She wore light blue pajamas with a yellow furry rabbit pattern on her chest. A pair of white jade-like feet stepped on the floor. No, it was as if she was stepping on Kim Yoon's heart. Why was she so cute? He felt like he was going to bleed. What should he do? Kim Yoon's mind went crazy. Those words that he didn't understand perfectly suited his current mood. Why was my sister so cute? I feel like I'm going to be killed by her cuteness. Can I touch that rabbit? I really want to hug it and eat it. I can't control myself. Kim Yoon's Adam's apple bobbed a few times before he struggled to blink his eyes and said hoarsely. Come here. His gaze made Gong Yimou's toes shrink. Oh no, she wanted to run again. Chapter 800. However, she was used to being obedient, so she walked over with a bit of vigilance. Jin Yoon used a very invasive gaze to scan her up and down. The desire to tear her apart and eat her up was firmly suppressed by him. Only then did he reach out and pull her directly into his arms. Young master. Kim Yoon couldn't help but pinch her face. With an indescribable affection, he said hoarsely, Little fool, have you forgotten again? Gong Yimou was hugged between Kim Yoon's legs. As the chair was high, Kim Yoon was taller than her. She looked up and gulped. Brother. Her voice was soft. As she spoke, she tilted her head like a cat. Her eyes reflected the light from the ceiling, and her pupils seemed to have merged with the starlight. Her gaze made Kim Yoon feel suffocated instantly. Crooked head kill. Kim Yoon didn't understand where the urge to vomit blood came from. Was it really okay to be so cute? He silently swallowed a mouthful of blood. What should he do? He felt like he was going to die from her cuteness. He began to show the indifference of an emperor. With an expressionless face, he dried Gong Yimou's hair and said coldly, Dry your hair more. As he spoke, he covered her face with a towel. He couldn't be indifferent because he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to control himself. He was afraid that he would do something outrageous. He heard that the maximum sentence was 3 years, and the maximum sentence was death. With her face covered, Gong Yimou was fiercely rubbed by Kim Yoon. Because Kim Yoon used a little too much strength, she was swaying left and right from the rubbing. She made a small sound of protest. Brother. Brother. She thought that Kim Yoon was angry because she didn't call him brother in the beginning. After rubbing her for a good while, Kim Yoon felt that he had finally vented a little of his anger. However, when he lifted the towel to take a look, not only did the little girl's hair not look like a bird's nest, but her face was red and her hair was slightly messy. Her little mouth was half open as she panted. That look was simply, "Brother. Your nose is bleeding." After a complete mess, Kim Yoon despised himself very much. Kim Yoon, you are the emperor. In any case, when the first dance had taken the capital by storm, there were countless brothels that she had visited. How could she not have seen enough courtesans? Emor was still so young. Her body was just a little fairer, her eyes were a little bigger, and her face was a little cuter. She was so cute that it made people want to vomit blood. How could she really bleed? This was simply a stain on his reputation. Gong Yimo could not hear Kim Yoon's inner thoughts. At this moment, she was a little anxious. She did not understand why the young master was suddenly bleeding. Was he sick? Young. Brother, are you sick? On Gong Yimo's small bed, Kim Yoon smelled Gong Yimo's unique scent and sighed happily. Yeah, I'm sick. It was a disease that could be seen but not touched. It was so itchy that it made people scratch their hearts and lungs, but they couldn't scratch the real thing. Gong Yimo was even more worried now. I'll call Uncle Shen over for you. The Uncle Shen she was referring to was the Kim family's doctor. Kim Yoon hurriedly pulled her back. It's not a serious illness. Emor, come over and sleep with me for a while. Gong Yimo's eyes widened. She struggled for a while. I haven't washed my clothes yet. Kim Yoon was originally acting like a wolf trying to seduce Little Red Riding Hood, but when he heard this, he became serious. You still want to wash your clothes yourself? His expression was unfriendly. The warmth from before had completely disappeared. Suddenly, his cold face was a little scary. Gong Yimo was silent for a moment before saying softly, anyway, I don't have many clothes. Kim Yoon suddenly realized how unfriendly the people around him were to Emor. He suppressed his anger and stroked Gong Yimo's head. Throw the clothes to the servants now. If they don't wash them, come and tell me. Actually, he could have let the servants take the clothes themselves, or let the butler change the servants. However, these people had already cast a shadow in little Emor's heart. If he didn't let her face these people directly, she would be at a disadvantage in the future. Gong Yimo was a little conflicted when she heard this. Because she really didn't mind washing a few clothes, she couldn't disobey eldest young master's words. Sighing in her heart, Gong Yimo picked up the clothes and silently went out. She was very conflicted because she didn't know how long young master's sudden good mood would last. If she developed the habit of being lazy now, when eldest young master took everything away, would she be able to return to the way she was before? With this thought, she carried the clothes to the clothes room. There were 2 maids ironing the clothes. Usually, the auntie would collect the master's clothes for them after cleaning the room. Their job was to wash and iron the clothes by hand. When they suddenly saw Gong Yimo, the 2 maids were expressionless. Gong Yimo wasn't liked by the master, and eldest young master hated her even more. Although there was a sudden change today, they both thought that young master would change back soon. What are you doing here? This was young master's clothes room, and the clothes inside were very important. Usually, there were 5 maids in charge here, and no one was allowed to cause trouble. Gong Yimo hugged the clothes. Although she wasn't as tall as them, she wasn't timid. Please help me wash the clothes. She thought for a moment and seriously added, this is young master's idea. They couldn't tell that she had a talent for borrowing the power of others. Hearing this, the two maids were stunned for a moment, then they both laughed. One of the younger maids snorted. "He just treated you a little better, and you want to go to heaven." What young master said? "If you're lazy, just say it. It's just a few clothes. Is it worth it to let others serve you the moment you're in power?" Another auntie, who was older than her, continued ironing her clothes as she said sarcastically, "I thought that a poor girl from the countryside would be more ambitious. I didn't expect her to be so unpresentable. Now, she's so cocky. If young master treated you a little better, I don't know what you'll do." Gong Yimo frowned, her face burning. She also felt that it was fine if she washed the clothes, but the other party humiliated her like this, which made her very uncomfortable. Moreover, this matter was their fault. They were originally invited to wash the clothes, so how could it be her fault for letting them wash the clothes? It's really what young master said. "Are you going to wash it or not?" Gong Yimo's childish female voice sounded. Her cold attitude made the little maid a little angry. "No. Didn't you wash it very well in the past? Now that you're in power, you're bullying people, right? Do you think we're easy to bully?" Her voice was very loud, making Gong Yimo a little afraid as she hugged the clothes tightly. She was used to being bullied, but deep down, she still refused to give in. "This is your job." The little maid impatiently put down the clothes in her hands and shouted angrily, "Are you done? I don't believe that if I don't wash your clothes you'll be fired." "Very well, you're fired." Kim Yoon suddenly appeared, and his lungs were about to explode from anger. Why did all these people bully his amour? Wasn't it obvious that he doted on her during dinner? Or were these people brainless? Chapter 801. When they saw Kim Yoon, the two of them subconsciously panicked. "Young master," Kim Yoon took Gong Yimo into his arms and lifted her up. He was 17 years old, but he was tall and big. Wasn't heavy either, so he felt strangely comfortable carrying her. The clothes in her arms were thrown to the ground by Kim Yoon. His cold gaze swept over the two women, and he suddenly felt that it wasn't a bad thing to make an example out of them. "You didn't hear it. You're fired. Get out." The butler heard the commotion and hurried over. When he heard the eldest young master's words, he naturally had to ask the two servants to leave. "Why?" The older one was scared silly, but the younger one was very unconvinced. When she saw the other servants coming over, she shouted loudly, "I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I be fired?" "You didn't do anything wrong." Kim Yoon carried Gong Yimo with one hand and patted her back with the other to comfort her. The cold glint in his eyes caused everyone present to tremble in fear. "I said before, she's my little sister. She's the young miss of the Jean family. As servants of the Jean family, you don't listen to the young miss. What's the use of keeping you?" His cold voice caused everyone to tremble. Then they were taken away by the butler. Even if they disagreed 1,000 times, what was the use? Was there anyone in the Jean family who dared to disobey the young master? Kim Yoon was very satisfied with the butler's efficiency. Seeing that this wasn't enough, he changed his expression and asked Gong Yimo. Who else bullied you here? Tell me, and I'll take revenge for you." Everyone fell silent. Some people looked at Gong Yimo uneasily, afraid that Gong Yimo would say what they did in the past. Every dog has its day. The little sparrow's sudden reversal caught them off guard. Gong Yimo witnessed the change in Kim Yoon's expression at close range. From his initial anger to his current gentleness. Even if that anger was directed at others, she still felt that the impact was not small. She was a little scared, worried that one day, his terrible anger would fall on her. So she was stunned. Under Kim Yoon's somewhat forceful gaze, she slowly shook her head. Kim Yoon was a little puzzled. He originally wanted to use this opportunity to help Immerse establish her prestige and make a good impression. Why did she reject it? But Immerse was the most important. He didn't say anything and let those people go. There was still time. After that, Kim Yoon made a lot of changes. He asked the housekeeper to open up a separate cloakroom for Immerse. The clothes would be delivered tomorrow. At that time, he could dress Immerse up every day. He also asked the housekeeper to turn the study next to his room into Immerse's bedroom. He even opened a door inside to connect the two rooms. After giving instructions, Kim Yoon carried Gong Yimo to his room. Gong Yimo was still young, so no one thought too much about it. Moreover, after the commotion just now, they still had some lingering fears. It was not easy to find a job that paid as good as the Jean family's. They didn't want to offend the young master. At this time, Gong Yimo was curled up in the middle of the 3-meter big bed. The dark blue quilt set off her jade-white skin. She was small, but it made people's blood boil. With great difficulty, Jin Yun suppressed the unspeakable desire and sat on the bed with the book in his hand. Gong Yimo didn't understand because the books that Kim Yoon brought were all hers. Immerse's grades aren't good. The dark golden light softened his facial features. In addition, Kim Yoon, who was lying on the bed with her, was simply unbelievably gentle. He was like a different person from the young master who had just killed a chicken to warn the monkey. Gong Yimo held the books and nodded. She transferred from the countryside and couldn't keep up with the progress. In addition, she was bullied in school, and when she came back, she was bullied by the young master. Even if she was talented, it was difficult for her to catch up. But the young master was happy. His father's only request for him was to have good grades and knowledge, and to be able to take over the company in the future. Therefore, even if the young master was a hooligan, his father didn't care because the young master's grades were very good. Kim Yoon silently praised the original body, and then said softly to Gong Yimo, "How about I tutor you in the future?" He originally planned to hire a tutor, but after thinking about it, how could he bear to give up such a good opportunity to cultivate their relationship? Thus, the scene above was born. Gong Yimo was flattered. The young master actually wanted to tutor her. She nodded repeatedly, but then thought of something, and her little face became serious. "Will it be too troublesome for you?" Kim Yoon hurriedly touched her little face. "It's no trouble, no trouble. From tomorrow onwards, you will live next door. Come and find me at night, and I will help you with your homework." Gong Yimo nodded and couldn't help but smile. She was really happy this time. Her smile was undoubtedly Kim Yoon's greatest motivation. The two of them went straight to the main topic and started the tutoring. Kim Yoon looked at the questions in her hands, and the answers and analysis steps spontaneously appeared in his mind. However, he needed some time to understand it himself, so he taught very slowly at first. But gradually, he became more and more comfortable with it. Gong Yimo also listened very seriously. Time flew by, and soon it was very late. "That's it. Do you understand?" Kim Yoon asked softly, only to realize that Gong Yimo had already fallen asleep on the bed. His eyes revealed gentleness as he quietly looked at her for a while, then he put away the books and lay down beside her. Today was the most fulfilling and the happiest day of his life. He was able to hug her, kiss her, and even watch her sleep. This kind of happiness made him feel like he was about to fly. Once upon a time, he had crazily longed for this. Even in his dreams, he wished that he could go back to the beginning. He would definitely seize the opportunity and accompany her as she grew up. He would make the most important person by her side become him, and make her completely his. And all of this came true today, Kim Yoon suddenly felt a little afraid. He was afraid that when he woke up, he would go back to that cold palace, to a world where she didn't belong. It was really too scary. Kim Yoon couldn't help but reach out and hug Gong Yimo. Only then did he feel a little more at ease. Gong Yimo rubbed against his chest before finding a comfortable position to sleep. Her sleeping face was extremely cute. Kim Yoon couldn't help but lower his head to kiss her face and forehead, but it was as if he couldn't get enough of it. Actually, it wasn't that he didn't want to find another person. Everyone around him advised him to get married, and told him that every woman had their own good points, so he shouldn't only think about one person. He really tried his best to find someone to replace Immerse, but it didn't work. He felt disgusted when other women got close to him. He couldn't do it. And now, he finally found someone to belong to. God, please let him stay in this world forever. Kim Yoon didn't dare to sleep. He silently looked at the little person in his arms until he couldn't take it anymore and fell into a deep sleep. This was probably the first time he slept so well in the past few decades. Chapter 802. The next day, when Kim Yoon woke up, his mind was a little groggy. He seemed to have had a dream. In the dream, he had gone to the world 1,000 years in the future and met little Immerse. He was her brother who was not related to her by blood. What a beautiful dream. Why didn't Yoon-gue wake him up? It was so bright. He should have morning court by now. Suddenly, someone nudged him. Brother! Get up and have breakfast. When Kim Yoon heard the voice, he opened his eyes abruptly. Then, he couldn't help but rub his eyes. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a dream. Seeing Kim Yoon suddenly staring at her, Gong Yimo was shocked. She stared at him blankly. She had woken up very early today. Looking at eldest young master who was just inches away from her, she thought for a long time and finally made a decision. No matter how long the eldest young master would treat her well, she should return the favor. Since he wanted to be a good brother, then she would learn to be a good sister. It wasn't that she didn't have any ulterior motives. Perhaps if she behaved well, eldest young master would continue to be abnormal. That way, her life would be much better. Kim Yoon couldn't help but grab her slender and fair wrist. That invasive gaze made Gong Yimo feel even more helpless. Did she do something wrong again because she was too pleased with herself? Eldest young master didn't seem happy, Immerse. His sharp and intimidating gaze swept over her, as if he was trying to determine if she was real. Hearing that eldest young master still called her Immerse, Gong Yimo heaved a sigh of relief. Although she didn't know why his gaze was so sharp, it was obviously the same as yesterday. She composed herself and said softly, Brother, it's time for you to get up. Kim Yoon's heart started to pound. Immerse in front of him had already freshened up and was wearing the milky white tutu dress that he had bought for her yesterday. Her seaweed-like black hair flowed down, accentuating her small face. However, her eyes were extraordinarily large. The way she called him a brother was simply too adorable. He exerted force and little Immerse cried out in surprise as he pressed her down. Brother. Kim Yoon directly sucked on her mouth. Oh. Gong Yimo widened her eyes. Why did her brother kiss her again? Kim Yoon kissed her lips eagerly. Only when her scent filled the tip of his nose did the intense uneasiness and impact gradually disappear. He had really arrived 1,000 years in the future, and the woman he loved was right beneath him. How blissful! Every day felt like a gift. So he kissed her very sincerely. On the big dark blue bed, a big boy wearing beige pajamas was pressing down on a little girl and kissing her. There was an indescribable charm and gentleness. After the kiss, Kim Yoon released her slightly swollen lips. His long eyelashes drooped, and he revealed a very gentle smile. Good morning, Moer. Gong Yimo's little face turned completely red. Her large eyes clearly reflected the young master's lazy appearance as he stood up. She was completely stunned. Young master had become gentle again. Moreover, was she going to be kissed by young master every day in the future? It felt weird, but she didn't hate it. Kim Yoon released her in time. Although he was reluctant, he had waited for so many years, so he wouldn't be too anxious. Moreover, teasing her really tested his willpower. Seeing that she was in a daze, Kim Yoon half knelt on the bed and pinched her face. It's time to get up, little lazy cat. His deep doting could melt a person. If you don't get up now, you'll be late. I'll get up now. Gong Yimo suddenly came back to her senses and hurriedly got up. When she encountered a problem that she couldn't figure out, she would usually skip over it. Anyway, maybe she would figure it out after a while. After Kim Yoon washed up, he pulled Gong Yimo's little hand to eat breakfast. In the corridor, the sunlight shone in through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Kim Yoon seemed to smell the flowers and sunlight. He looked out the window. There was a swing and flowers, forming a beautiful picture. In the past, he had seen things 1,000 times more beautiful than this, but those things could never stop him. Why not? Kim Yoon looked at the little girl beside him and smiled. It wasn't that they weren't beautiful enough, but because she wasn't there. But now, with her by his side, he felt alive. Not only him, but everything seemed to be reborn, full of vitality. Brother, do you want to play on the swing? Gong Yimo saw Kim Yoon staring and couldn't help but ask. Kim Yoon squeezed her hand. I'll take you to play on the weekend, okay? Gong Yimo's eyes lit up and she hurriedly nodded. Kim Yoon then continued to take her to the dining room. After what happened last night, the servants were very attentive to Gong Yimo today. But unfortunately, with Kim Yoon around, they didn't have the chance to flatter her. Kim Yoon's attitude of taking care of her was familiar and natural. Seeing her eating happily, he seemed to have eaten well himself. Gong Yimo was a little embarrassed. She put the meal bag in front of Kim Yoon's mouth. Brother, you eat too. Kim Yoon smiled slightly. With her hand eating that small meal bag, one bite at a time, the scene was unbelievably heartwarming. The surrounding servants were all stunned. For the first time, they realized that the young master was actually quite good-looking. His face was very three-dimensional and exquisite. His figure was slender and well-proportioned. Coupled with his gentle temperament and elegant manner, he was like a person from the ancient palace. Gong Yimo was also more attractive than this young master. She felt that the young master was very beautiful. That kind of beauty wasn't referring to his appearance, but a kind of beauty that came from inside out, like a fine wine that had aged, a beauty that had a foundation. After a peaceful meal, the two of them went to school together. Their relationship was so good that it was as if they had known each other for many years. God knows how much the young master hated this burden in the past. Gong Yimo felt as if she was in a dream. Whether it was the stunned gazes of her classmates or the words of jealousy, she didn't seem to feel it. During class, she was still in a daze. She also didn't notice the obscure gazes of her classmates. The new teacher was a more gentle old teacher. The previous teacher was indeed fired. No matter what connections they used, it was useless. Moreover, after the commotion in the cafeteria, the students were a little afraid of Kim Yoon. Naturally, they didn't dare to get close to Gong Yimo, even if she was as beautiful as a little princess. She was invisibly isolated, but it was much better than before. After all, she was an existence that was bullied by her classmates. If only the young master could always be like this, Gong Yimo held her cheeks as she thought. Her appearance was extremely sweet. When she came out, Kim Yoon pulled her seaweed-like hair into a high ponytail. Coupled with the milky white princess dress, she was simply too beautiful. Moreover, Kim Yoon said that she could wear the new school uniform at night. Gong Yimo thought of this and smiled slightly. The class monitor sitting next to her felt his heart beating rapidly. However, he was only 13 years old and didn't understand why his heart was moved. He only felt that Gong Yimo was really beautiful. He really wanted to be her desk mate. Chapter 803. Days passed, and Gong Yimo's mother and stepfather came back. After a week of getting along with each other, Gong Yimo and Kim Yoon got along very well. They were like siblings. One day, when both of them came home from school, they were talking and laughing when they saw their parents in the living room. Kim Yoon's face immediately became cold. Actually, he was very afraid of his father. But who was Kim Yoon? He had been an emperor for decades. His father was nothing compared to him. Father. But he still had to do what he had to do. Kim Yoon looked at Su-ru and said, "Auntie." "Yes." Su-ru quickly responded. This was the first time that Jin Qingyan looked at her in the eyes. Gong Yimo also called him uncle obediently. Jin Shen looked at Gong Yimo and then looked at his son. Although he did not discipline his son well, it was not that he did not want to. He just did not have the time. He did not expect his son to be so sensible. Thinking of the situation reported by the butler, his son not only did not go out to cause trouble, but also went to school obediently every day. The teacher said that he had become much more polite, and all this was because of this little girl. Jin Shen did not have any feelings for Gong Yimo. Anyway, the Jin family was a big family. It was not a big deal to raise a girl and pay for her dowry. But if this girl could lead his son to the right path, he did not mind treating her better. So, he nodded at Gong Yimo and then asked Kim Yoon some questions. For example, why did he change his name? Gong Yimo was pulled aside by Su-ru. Although she heard that Jin Qingyan was treating her daughter better, she was still worried. So, she whispered to her daughter. "Mor, is young master really good to you recently?" Gong Yimo nodded without hesitation. There was no doubt about it. After all, everyone in the Jin family knew how good Jin Qingyan was to her. Su-ru looked at her new daughter and didn't know if she was relieved or worried. In the end, she touched her daughter's head and comforted herself by thinking, "My daughter is so cute, it's normal for young master to like her." After the family of four had dinner together for the first time, Kim Yoon brought Gong Yimo upstairs. In the end, these people had nothing to do with him, but as long as they didn't get in the way, he would still fulfill his responsibility as a son. Gong Yimo had always been a little afraid of Jin Shen, so she didn't eat anything just now. As soon as they returned to the room, Kim Yoon carried Gong Yimo through the secret door between the two rooms. He took out a small cake from the fridge and gave it to her. "Thank you, brother." Gong Yimo happily received it. Kim Yoon smiled and patted her head. Then, he carried her to watch TV. He tried to receive all kinds of information from this world while hugging Gong Yimo, not wanting her to leave. Gong Yimo was also very obedient. She would feed Kim Yoon with every bite she took. The two of them were too close, but Gong Yimo didn't notice it. She only thought that their relationship was better than other siblings. Kim Yoon watched for a while and then stared at little Mor in his arms. He already knew that in this world, people became adults at 16 years old. In the past, it was 18 years old. However, women usually only fully developed at 18 years old. In his previous world, it was wrong to marry at 12 or 13 years old. So, he decided to wait. There were still 6 years until Mor turned 18 years old. If she was with him every day, it wouldn't be so difficult. Gong Yimo saw him staring at her and fed him a spoonful of cake. Brother, is it good? Kim Yoon basically didn't taste it because he was completely focused on Gong Yimo. He lowered his head and licked her lips. It's very good. Brother. Gong Yimo pouted slightly. Recently, they had been kissing a lot, but Gong Yimo felt that it wasn't good to do it too often, so she would sometimes stop it. Kim Yoon raised his eyebrows and smiled. Under his beautiful big eyes was an exquisite cinnabar mole. Mor doesn't like it. Gong Yimo was wrapped in Kim Yoon's arms. She held the cake and said in a muffled voice, "No, it's just that, you kissed me too much." Her little face blushed and she lowered her head. She was embarrassed. Kim Yoon saw her long eyelashes fluttering as she lowered her eyes. That fluttering arc seemed to be tickling his heart. He swallowed with difficulty and decided to take back what he had said earlier. 6 years was really too difficult to endure. A sense of danger made Gong Yimo's scalp tingle. She looked up and realized that her brother was looking at her like that again. Every time he looked at her like that, she felt like she was being stripped naked. She was a little scared, so she pulled Kim Yoon's sleeve. "Brother, you should help me with my revision." Kim Yoon finally broke free from that crazy desire and looked at her deeply. "Okay, revision." Humans were indeed greedy. In the past, he felt that if he could be with Amor every day, he would be willing to give up half of his life. But now that they were together, he felt that every day was so difficult because he had a deeper desire that he didn't even dare to think about in the past. When he carried Gong Yimo to the study table, Kim Yoon's gaze swept over the big bed and his heart couldn't help but tremble. He really didn't know how much longer he could endure. The next day, Kim Yoon went to Gong Yimo's class to pick her up after school. Kim Yoon was about to take the college entrance exam, so he cherished every day. But he didn't expect that his baby, who had been obediently waiting for him, wasn't there. He randomly grabbed a boy and asked. The boy revealed a strange expression. Previously, a senior said that you had something to do and left first and asked her to send classmate Gong. Isn't that the case? Kim Yoon was shocked. He quickly grabbed him and asked, I've never said such a thing. Who was that person? What did she look like? The boy's expression also became serious. She's quite good-looking. Short hair and a mole on her chin. Before he could finish speaking, Kim Yoon ran out. He already knew who it was. Because the school had a rule that junior high school students weren't allowed to bring their phones, Mor didn't bring hers. However, the person who kidnapped her had a phone, but he didn't know the number because he had thrown away his original phone. The door to the principal's office was kicked open by Jin Yoon. The principal looked at Jin Yoon, who was striding towards him in confusion. His legs trembled. He thought that this young master who had finally behaved himself for a period of time was going to beat him up. Kim Yoon walked up to the principal and tried his best to calm himself down so that he wouldn't grab him by the collar. My sister is missing. Principal, please send people to search the school. Also, I want Lee Wire's number. Now. The principal heaved a sigh of relief when he heard that he wasn't looking for trouble. Then, he panicked when he heard that the young master's precious stepsister was missing. Wait, I'll send people to look for her. Chapter 804. Only then did Kim Yoon shift his terrifying gaze away from the principal. The principal felt the tension in the air lessen as he spoke on the phone while glancing at Kim Yoon's expression. Although the young master had been well behaved recently, he was much scarier when he was angry. Just now, he felt as if he was being strangled by the other party. Young people nowadays were really something. Student Jean, I got it. Lee Wire's number is. Kim Yoon quickly noted it down and spoke on the phone. If your people find my sister, call me immediately. Before he could finish speaking, he had already left. The principal was in a miserable state. Why did he feel that he was too obedient? Lee Wire's phone could not be reached. In the school's storeroom, Lee Wire and a few other girls surrounded Gong Yimo and forced her into a corner. The other three were also classmates or juniors who had a good relationship with the young master. Recently, without exception, they were all expelled by the young master and lost a lot of benefits. They could not vent their anger on the young master, so they could only look for Gong Yimo. If Gong Yimo knew what was good for her, she would let them beat her up and vent their anger. But if she dared to complain, they would teach her a lesson in the future. Anyway, even if the young master found out, it would not matter. In the past, when the young master treated a female classmate well and that female classmate was taught a lesson, the young master did not react at all. He even enjoyed the other girls' crazy actions for him. It would be the same this time. Gong Yimo was surrounded. Her expression was tense, but she did not panic. She used her advantage to threaten them. If you do this, I will tell my brother. My brother said before that anyone who bullies me will not have a good ending. Gong Yimo's words were very effective. The other girls looked at Lee Wire. After all, she was the one who started this. Lee Wire laughed arrogantly. You really have the cheek to say that. The young master was just a little nicer to you and you can't tell east from west. You are just a plaything. Do you think the young master will stand up for you? You think too highly of yourself. Her words gave the other girls some confidence. The young master was famous for being fond of the new and despising the old. Moreover, he had never been involved in disputes between women, so there was nothing to worry about. Thinking of this, they all looked at Gong Yimo with hostility. Gong Yimo was a little scared when they stared at her. After all, they were a few years older than her, and she couldn't beat them. Have you really thought it through? Gong Yimo forced herself to calm down. Young master is very interested in me right now. Do you still remember the incident where my teacher was expelled? It's not wise to touch me now. Gong Yimo's words were also very reasonable. Now was the time when he liked her. Perhaps it would be the same as the last time. Young master would get angry again because of a beauty. One of the girls was scared. Why don't we wait a few days before looking for this girl? Anyway, young master won't like her for long. However, Lee Wire disagreed. No. Next time, she'll be prepared. Will she still be tricked by us? Last time at the stylish shop, Gong Yimo made her lose so much face. Today, she must take revenge. Thinking of this, her eyes flashed with resentment. How about this? We'll take off her clothes and take nude photos. If she dares to say anything, we'll post it online. Let's see if she still dares to complain. This time, Gong Yimo was really a little panicked. However, the other girls felt that this was a good idea and nodded. That's right. Let's see if this girl is shameless. Lee Wire saw Gong Yimo take a step back in fear and laughed. Scared? Humph, you guys go. First, take off her clothes, take photos, then beat her up. She's from the countryside, so what right does she have to wear good clothes? When the other girls heard this, they thought that if it wasn't for Gong Yimo, young master wouldn't have cut off their branded clothes and bags. Immediately, a few of them walked towards Gong Yimo. Seeing that Gong Yimo was resisting with all her might, the four girls surrounded her and forcefully pulled off Gong Yimo's clothes. Lee Wire even took the opportunity to pinch Gong Yimo a few times. Let go of me. What you're doing is illegal. Gong Yimo said angrily as she struggled. Lee Wire directly tore her clothes apart, revealing her newly developed breasts and sneered. Then go and expose us. When the time comes, we'll post your nude photos on the school's website. Let's see if you still have the face to live. As she said this, she took out her phone and prepared to take photos. However, she realized that her phone had more than 10 missed calls. She looked at Gong Yimo, who was struggling with all her might. This couldn't be young master calling, right? Then, she thought that it was impossible. That was why they took action. How could young master's actions be so fast? It wasn't like she was his biological sister, so she opened her camera and prepared to take photos. As she took photos, she said, "Hurry up and tear off your skirt too." "No. You can't do this." Gong Yimo widened her eyes. Her resistance was so strong that the three girls couldn't hold her down. One of the girls was so angry that she slapped Gong Yimo. Gong Yimo wasn't someone to be trifled with. Her small hand fiercely scratched her face, leaving 3 bloody marks. That girl screamed in pain, then her eyes turned fierce. "I'll kill you, you slut." As she said this, she directly pounced over and grabbed Gong Yimo's long hair and pulled it back. Gong Yimo was in pain and covered her head with both hands. At this moment, her skirt was also torn off. No, she didn't want to be photographed naked. However, the other party was very evil and forcefully held her down, not allowing her to struggle. They didn't know that this was illegal. They only wanted to vent their anger and prevent the other party from spreading the news. Gong Yimo was only left with her torn shirt and underwear. Her hand was grabbed and forced to face the camera. Her long hair was scattered and the corners of her eyes were red. "You will be fired for doing this." One of the girls said proudly, "My family has connections. What's there to be afraid of?" Li Wire took out her phone to take photos of Gong Yimo and said maliciously, "I already said that I want to take nude photos. Strip her clean. Let's see if she dares to be disobedient in the future." The girls laughed and reached out to tear off Gong Yimo's shirt and underwear. Gong Yimo's hand was grabbed and she found an opportunity to bite one of the girls' hand. "Ah! Wretched girl, let go of me." Gong Yimo refused to let go. When she was finally pulled away, her hand was already bleeding. "Damn it! I'm going to post your photos on the internet right now." Before she could finish speaking, the door was suddenly kicked open, causing them to panic instantly. Kim Yoon was the first to rush in. When he saw Gong Yimo's appearance, his pupils shrank. "No one is allowed to come in." His voice made the security guards and others behind him subconsciously wait outside the door. When the girls saw that Kim Yoon had actually found this place, they were so frightened that their faces turned pale and they hurriedly shrank to the side. Without anyone supporting her, Gong Yimo fell limply to the ground. However, Kim Yoon caught her. His hands trembled slightly and his heart trembled even more. "Sorry, I'm late." Chapter 805. Gong Yimo clutched his clothes tightly. Her big red eyes stared at Kim Yoon. Kim Yoon's heart ached. He thought that she was angry that he came late, so he hugged her tightly. "Mor, don't be afraid. There won't be a next time." Feeling his body temperature, Gong Yimo's tense body relaxed instantly. "Brother. I knew you would come." She buried her head in Kim Yoon's shoulder and said softly. They had not known each other for long, but she felt that the young master would definitely come to save her. Definitely. Luckily, he really came. Kim Yoon's heart instantly warmed up. Mor did not blame him. That was great. But when he looked at Li Wire and the others, he was not so friendly. He could not control his anger, especially when he saw that Mor's clothes were almost torn off. At that moment, he wanted to kill these people. But this was a lawful society. He could not do that. Kim Yoon lowered his eyes. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Even if he could not do it openly, he could do it secretly. The girls were already scared stiff. Especially Kim Yoon's gaze, it made them unable to breathe. But they also realized that if they did not do something now, the young master would not let them off in such an angry situation. Solely Wire braced herself and went forward. Her eyes instantly turned red. This time, she was really scared. Brother Jean, we only did it because we cared too much about you. Sorry, we did something wrong in a moment of impulse. Her voice stopped abruptly. Because Jin Yun glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. That cold gaze made her freeze on the spot, stopping a meter away from them. Kim Yoon was not interested in talking to them. He took off his shirt and covered Gong Yimo's body. Gong Yimo was obediently nestled in his arms the whole time. Finally, he carried her up. That kind of cold attitude made the girls feel that something was wrong. Come in. As soon as he finished speaking, the principal walked in with his men. At first, he didn't know what had happened, but when he saw the clothes and phone on the floor, as well as Gong Yimo, who was wrapped in the young master's clothes, he understood what had happened. His back was drenched in cold sweat. This time, the eldest young master would not let this matter rest. Kim Yoon looked at the principal coldly. I've always thought that Platinum Academy is the best high school in Sea City, and that the people who come here are either rich or noble. But now that such a thing has happened, it's obvious that it's the fault of poor management. His voice was very calm, as if he was narrating a fact, but it made the principal panic. The Jean family had the most shares in this private aristocratic school. If the Jean family wanted to remove him from his position, it would be a simple matter. Classmate Jean. Don't worry, I will handle this matter well. The principal hurriedly took a few steps forward and declared, what happened today was definitely an accident. I'll give you a satisfactory answer. Student Jean, I hope you'll give me a chance. Opportunity. Kim Yoon couldn't be bothered to argue with them. He strode out. Okay, I'll wait for your result. Although he didn't say anything harsh, the threat between the lines and the surging ruthlessness on his body made the principal understand that if he didn't punish them severely, the fire would burn him down. At the thought of this, he looked at the frightened girls angrily. Really, if they had known this would happen, why did they do it in the first place? Now, they had to bear all the consequences. Kim Yoon carried Gong Yimo and quickly got into the car. He guessed that the principal would expel those girls. However, they had done such a terrible thing. How could he be appeased by just expelling them? Therefore, he made a call. During this time, Gong Yimo had been obedient. However, when she heard the eldest young master's request to make those girls unable to study in Sea City, she felt that it was a little too much. However, when she thought about how they wanted to take nude photos and do illegal things, she didn't say anything about it. She had used a lot of strength just now. Now that she was nestled in Kim Yoon's arms, she was like a doll that had lost its soul. There was an indescribable dispiritedness. After Kim Yoon dealt with those people, he couldn't help but look at the little person in his arms. Seeing that her face was pale, he took off her clothes and saw that there were some bruises on her body. He frowned and said, "Amor, let's go to the hospital, okay?" Gong Yimo heard this and quickly shook her head. "Don't make Mom worry. I'm fine. It's just some bruises. I'll be fine after applying some medicine." But, brother, Gong Yimo shrank into his arms and hugged him tightly. "It doesn't hurt anymore. Brother, let me hug you." Kim Yoon couldn't help but hug her back. This was the first time that Gong Yimo had taken the initiative. However, he wasn't happy because she was afraid. He didn't protect her well. "I'm sorry." Kim Yoon stroked her hair and gently patted her back. This time, brother didn't do a good job. Brother promises that there won't be a next time. It's okay. Gong Yimo's voice was a bit weak. She rubbed against Kim Yoon's neck and was extremely obedient. In the past, when I was bullied, no one came to help me. Her voice had a trace of grievance, which made Kim Yoon's heart ache even more. But this time, I knew that brother would come to save me. Her voice changed and there was a bit of joy. Brother really came. I'm so happy. Kim Yoon couldn't help but hug her tightly. What an obedient child. Not only did she not blame him, she even remembered his good deeds. Brother still didn't do enough, he was very ashamed. If only he was still the emperor, he wouldn't be so passive. Gong Yimo said a little embarrassedly. Brother has already done very well. She raised her head. Her eyes had already regained their vigor. They were bright and close. I like the current brother. Kim Yoon's heart trembled. He couldn't help but grab Gong Yimo, who was half kneeling in his arms, and carefully asked, "What did you just say?" Gong Yimo secretly smiled, then leaned forward and kissed his face. I said, I like brother. Mo. Kim Yoon hugged Gong Yimo tightly again. Brother also likes Mo. I like you very, very much. This kind of like was the same, but also different. Because there was a partition, without pressing the switch, the driver in front could not hear the sound behind, let alone see the situation behind. If he knew, perhaps he would only wonder when the young master had such a good relationship with this little burden. After being hugged by Kim Yoon for a while, Gong Yimo felt that Kim Yoon's body temperature was very high. She felt a little hot and couldn't help but move. However, Kim Yoon suddenly raised his head and stared at her. Gong Yimo sighed inwardly. Brother was using that terrifying gaze to stare at her again. Every time, she would feel her whole body tense up. Chapter 806. Brother. Gong Yimo tilted her head and furrowed her brows. Every time you look at me like that, it's so scary. Kim Yoon finally broke free from some kind of impulse. He reached out to trace Gong Yimo's face and asked hoarsely. How scary? Gong Yimo thought carefully and said seriously, it's like you're thinking about how to eat me up. Kim Yoon couldn't help but laugh. How could his little amour be so cute? But she was right. He really wanted to eat her up every minute and every second. He had been hungry for too long. But he still couldn't. She was still too young. He didn't want to hurt her, so he could only bear with it. Gong Yimo felt Kim Yoon's sorrowful mood and couldn't help but rub his brows. Brother, are you unhappy about something? Or are you thinking about what just happened? I'm fine. Kim Yoon revealed a gentle smile and stroked her hair. He suddenly thought of the misery of waiting for a lifetime. But now, it wouldn't happen anymore. Although he was still waiting, he was willing to endure it. No, brother isn't unhappy. With Mo around, brother is happy every day. With brother around, no one will bully you anymore. Gong Yimo revealed a sweet smile and said, brother is the best. The two chatted for a while before reaching home. Since the two elders at home weren't around, Kim Yoon carefully applied medicine for Gong Yimo and coaxed her to sleep. Looking at Gong Yimo's peaceful sleeping face, his heart was filled with sweetness. Just looking at her made him feel like he had been with her for a long time. This was great. Time passed quietly, and soon, a month had passed. In this month, everyone witnessed how well eldest young master treated Gong Yimo. Those who were looking for trouble in the past didn't dare to do so now. Everyone knew that those who bullied Gong Yimo back then, no school dared to accept them, causing them to have to leave their homes and go somewhere else. Gong Yimo had never felt so comfortable before. There were no relatives to abuse her, no classmates to bully her, and her grades were slowly improving. She even had a good brother. Was the god of luck starting to favor her? In the afternoon, seeing that Kim Yoon hadn't appeared, Gong Yimo got up and prepared to go to the high school to call her brother for lunch. During this period, the entire grade 12 class 1 knew that eldest young master had a cute sister. So every time Gong Yimo came to find Kim Yoon would receive many envious and jealous looks. Some shameless people even ran up to Kim Yoon and called him a brother-in-law. Naturally, Jin Yoon secretly dealt with him. Only then did they know that eldest young master had a sister complex. However, it was obviously different today. The entire classroom was empty except for Kim Yoon and a girl. Gong Yimo stood at the door and was slightly stunned. She knew that girl. She was the girl that her brother liked, but this girl didn't like her brother. She was the elder sister of the Su family, Su Wen. At this moment, the two of them didn't notice her. The beautiful girl, Su Wen, blocked Kim Yoon's path and said disdainfully, "Kim Yoon. If you're a man, go and break off the engagement. What era are we in now? We don't play with prearranged marriages." Kim Yoon frowned. He felt that his predecessor had really left him a lot of trouble. "I've changed my name. I'm Kim Yoon. As for the marriage you mentioned, I'll get my dad to break it tonight. Goodbye." Su Wen's eyes widened. She thought that Kim Yoon would struggle a little. Previously, Kim Yoon had pestered her very tightly and forced her to transfer schools before he restrained himself. But now, she had no choice but to settle this marriage. Otherwise, they would have to hold an engagement party when she was 18. So, she transferred schools today to clarify things with him. She didn't expect him to have such an attitude. It was as if she was some kind of scourge. "Is there anything else?" Kim Yoon saw that Su Wen still didn't move aside and was a little anxious. What if got hungry after waiting for so long? Su Wen bit her lower lip and said angrily, "Don't think that I'll be soft-hearted if you do this. I'm definitely breaking off this engagement. If you don't go back today, I'll get my dad to come over in a few days." Actually, if she had a way to break off the engagement, she wouldn't have to do this. The Kim family had a big business and Kim Yoon was the only son. Her dad couldn't bear to part with this marriage. Kim Yoon finally looked at her. Recently, he had dyed his hair back. Some of the long strands of hair hung in front of his forehead, covering his overly sharp eyebrows. Under his pair of sparkling eyes, the cinnabar mole was particularly eye-catching. He was becoming more and more similar to the Kim Yoon from her previous life, whether it was in appearance or personality. In her previous life, he was the world's #1 beauty. When he looked at people, he was naturally somewhat bewitching. So, when Su Wen wanted to say something, she was stunned by his gaze. How could there be such a good-looking person? But no matter how good-looking he was, it couldn't hide the fact that he had a bad personality. She said loudly, "You can't force a melon to be sweet. Young master, please let me go." Kim Yoon couldn't help but smile. At that moment, all the decorations became the background. Su Wen could hear her heart beating excessively. "Okay, I'll let you go. But please, don't appear in front of me again." As he said that, he gently pushed her away. Then, he saw Gong Yimo standing at the door. His eyes instantly became gentle. "Have you been waiting for a long time?" Gong Yimo glanced at the pale Su Wen and shook her head. Kim Yoon didn't care about her. He directly pulled Gong Yimo to eat. In the afternoon, the school would hold an exhibition, so he could spend the whole afternoon with Immerse. Su Wen didn't know why, but when she saw Kim Yoon leave just like that, she felt uncomfortable. She thought that maybe it was because he was too good-looking. He was just rotten on the inside. In the afternoon, in the cool autumn weather, Kim Yoon held Gong Yimo's hand as they walked in the school. It was like a beautiful scenery. On this day, students could show off their talents to their heart's content. This was the only school in High City that had such a festival. It was to show off their wealth to outsiders. Some students brought a lot of good things to school in order to compete. There was no lack of antiques. The school even invited experts to appraise them and allowed them to buy and sell them. Every time they heard the results of the appraisal experts, some of the ordinary students would exclaim in surprise. Some of them were furious when they were found to be fake. Kim Yoon and Gong Yimo just looked at them. After all, in Kim Yoon's eyes, the antiques that these people brought were just a so-so. He had been an emperor for decades and had enjoyed the most exquisite life. His food, clothes, and jewelry were all the best in the world. However, Gong Yimo liked it very much. She held Kim Yoon's hand and looked around. She was most interested in the exquisitely designed handicrafts. It seemed that no matter how she changed, she was still her. Kim Yoon held her hand and strolled around. When he saw something that she liked, he would spend a lot of money to buy it. Everyone was envious and jealous behind them. They also wanted a brother like him. Chapter 807. At this moment, Gong Yimo suddenly saw a very exquisitely made jade hairpin. The texture and winding were very exquisite, and the color was gorgeous. It was so blue that it was eye-catching. Seeing that Gong Yimo liked it, Kim Yoon waved his hand and was about to buy it. At this moment, Suwon also took a fancy to the hairpin. It was her grandmother's birthday soon, and this kind of beautiful antique would please her the most. Therefore, she snatched the hairpin without saying a word. Gong Yimo grabbed nothing. When she saw that it was Suwon, she pursed her lips and did not say anything. Suwon looked at Gong Yimo with some pride. It seemed that this child of the Kim family knew very well that she could not compare to her in Kim Yoon's heart. Actually, Suwon had been standing by the side for a long time. When she saw that Kim Yoon was so nice and gentle to Gong Yimo, she suddenly felt a little uncomfortable. That was why this scene happened. This hairpin is not bad. How much is it? I'll buy it. The person selling the hairpin happened to be Gong Yimo's classmate, the class monitor, Yuan Hao. Initially, he wanted to give it to her when he saw that Gong Yimo liked it. However, he was stopped halfway and was a little put in a spot. Kim Yoon was also unhappy. Why was it this woman again? We saw it first. Suwon raised her eyebrows. Why? Did you pay? Gong Yimo shook her head. It's okay, brother. Let's take a look. When Kim Yoon heard this, he narrowed his eyes and glanced at Suwon before leaving with Gong Yimo. Gong Yimo retreated so quickly, which made Suwon feel very bored. When she passed by Gong Yimo, she pretended to inadvertently stretch out her leg. In the end, Gong Yimo tripped and fell forward. Kim Yoon caught her in time, but she knocked into a calligraphy and painting stall. The ink spilled out and spilled on an exhibition. The stall owner shouted, "My calligraphy!" He was stunned. This is the authentic work of Master Liu of the Ming Dynasty. Kim Yoon helped Gong Yimo to stand properly. Then, he glanced at the calligraphy and said, "How much is it? I'll pay for it." However, he did not expect the other party to be so persistent. "This is my grandfather's favorite calligraphy. You can't just pay for it." As he spoke, he cried again. "It's over. If Grandpa finds out that I took his treasure and ruined it, he'll kill me." Gong Yimo saw that the other party was pitiful. She tugged at Yoon's sleeve. "Otherwise, he'll be beaten." The 15-year-old boy cried out, "How is it the same? This is the only one. You're dead." Kim Yoon saw Gong Yimo frowning and patted her head. "It's okay. Watch me." As he spoke, he took a step forward and looked at the so-called only one. These were all children. Few of them would protect the good things they took out. For example, calligraphy and paintings were placed directly on the table. Kim Yoon reached out to touch it and frowned. At this moment, the fiery youth said angrily, "Don't touch it. Haven't you harmed me enough?" Kim Yoon retracted his hand and glanced at him. "This is fake. Bullshit." The youth swore and raised his thick eyebrows. "Don't think that you can speak without thinking just because you're the young master of the Jin family. I, Xiao Ji, am not afraid of you." At this moment, the surrounding people also gathered around, including the teacher and the appraisal master. Once they saw that it was the young master, the teacher immediately focused 120% of his attention. "What's wrong?" Xiao Ji saw that someone had come and quickly said, "Teacher, please be the judge. My calligraphy and painting, the appraisal master that my family hired said that it was a treasure. In the end, it was destroyed by him and he even said that it was fake." Gong Yimo quickly said, "We're willing to pay." "Bah, who wants money? I want you to take out the exact same thing." At this moment, the appraisal master saw that such a good piece of calligraphy was destroyed. He looked at it with heartache and said, "This is the real thing. It's not bad." "Humph." Xiao Ji heard this and looked at Kim Yoon with his nose in the air. Kim Yoon shook his head. In the original body's memory, he had seen this master lose authentic work. As for Kim Yoon himself, calligraphy was the most basic skill. Naturally, he could see the difference between the two. He said softly, "This piece of calligraphy is an imitation. I don't know the year, but it's definitely not the work of the Ming Dynasty master. It's very likely that it's an ancient imitation. However, it's still considered an antique." "What makes you say that? Where's the evidence?" Xiao Ji was overbearing. Kim Yoon pointed at a few places according to his memory. "I've seen the authentic work before. That master had a very small detail, and that was when he wrote towards the end, the stroke would always be thinner than before. Moreover, the highlight of his calligraphy was that it was free and easy. However, this piece of calligraphy has the form, but the meaning is 1,000 times worse." They didn't really understand what Kim Yoon was talking about. Moreover, they were all modern people. How many of them could truly understand the meaning? "What makes you say that? What do you mean by meaning? You're talking as if you're very knowledgeable." Kim Yoon raised his eyebrows slightly. "Let's not talk about other things. Calligraphy and painting come naturally to me." Xiao Ji was angered by Kim Yoon's shameless boasting. Young Master Jin was such a bastard. Just because his grades were good, his family kept praising him. Today, he had to make him lose face. He pushed the inkstone in front of the table. "Who doesn't know how to boast? If you have the guts, do it for real." Gong Yimo looked at Kim Yoon a little worriedly because young master didn't know calligraphy. Kim Yoon suddenly smiled at her. Watch carefully." As he said that, he actually picked up the brush. Moreover, his posture and movements were as if he had held it 1,000 times. The surrounding students all gathered around. This was the first time they had seen young master write with a brush. It was really rare. That teacher and the appraisal master also looked at each other. The appraisal master was very knowledgeable about calligraphy and painting. Looking at the other party's starting hand, he really had practiced before. Kim Yoon closed his eyes and then moved. At that moment, it was as if he had changed into another person. His eyes were focused and the brush moved like a dragon. He wrote very quickly. It was a kind of proficiency that made people gasp in amazement. The surrounding people exclaimed because not only did the other party write quickly, he also wrote very well. Very quickly, the appraisal master realized that what the other party had written was none other than the content of the destroyed painting. And what was strange was that his handwriting was exactly the same as the original. Was he copying everyone's handwriting on the spot? Kim Yoon's heart emptied and felt rather relaxed. He was once very poor in learning and felt rather inferior. But later on, in order to be a good emperor, he studied hard and practiced hard. In the end, he could be said to be proficient in the 4 arts. Perhaps he did this so that he wouldn't have so much time to think about someone. Thinking of this, he suddenly stopped writing and glanced at Gong Yimou. Only Gong Yimou could understand the gentleness and tenderness in his eyes. Her heart was beating very quickly. She felt that something was different. Only when he finished writing the last stroke did the crowd exclaim in amazement. There was no other reason. What he wrote was exactly the same as the destroyed painting. Although it was the same, there were slight differences. They were laymen who didn't understand calligraphy and painting. They only felt that Kim Yoon's handwriting seemed to have come alive. It was exceptionally elegant. In comparison, they actually felt that the meticulously framed calligraphy was far inferior to Kim Yoon's handwriting. It was clearly the same. Could it be that this was the so-called artistic conception? Su Wen was also stunned by this scene. The way Kim Yoon wrote just now was like a noble young master in a scroll. He was calm and indifferent. That noble aura came from his bones. It was filled with years of experience that made people unable to take their eyes off him. Chapter 808. While the crowd was still in a daze, Kim Yoon smiled and wrote another piece of calligraphy. It was the exact same content, but this time, he used his own handwriting. His handwriting was delicate and elegant, but one could see the strength behind it. The domineering aura of a monarch passed through the paper and hit one in the face. The entire piece of calligraphy was written in one go, and the contrast was very obvious. Laymen didn't understand so much. They only felt that Kim Yoon's copy was better than the one Zhao Ji brought. Later on, Kim Yoon changed his handwriting, but it was better than the copy. Because the content was exactly the same, it was obvious who was better. Kim Yoon put down his pen and smiled. His noble temperament was undoubtedly enhanced by this smile. His half-squinted eyes and the glistening cinnabar mole made the hearts of the surrounding girls beat faster. Now, do you still think that yours is authentic? Kim Yoon took out a business card from his wallet and placed it on the table. This is old Shua's phone number. He's a famous appraisal master in and out of the country. You can find him to appraise it. If he says it's authentic, I'll compensate you with an identical authentic one. If he says it's fake, I'll pay you how much it's worth. Zhao Ji was already stunned by Kim Yoon's move. He had seen many people practice calligraphy, and his grandfather also practiced calligraphy. However, it was the first time he saw someone like Kim Yoon, who was proficient with the brush and wrote like the wind. Not to mention, when the other party wrote, his temperament was like moving clouds and flowing water, as well as his skill in penetrating the paper. He was influenced and naturally knew that Kim Yoon's handwriting was much better than the one he brought. Therefore, he rolled his eyes and quickly said, "Well, I'm not a calculative person. How about this? These 2 pieces of calligraphy belong to me. Consider it compensation for my loss." He said proudly, but his hand quickly covered the words. With this, his grandfather would definitely not hit him. Kim Yoon smiled indifferently and left with Gong Yimou's hand. This scene made Su Wen unable to believe her eyes. Back then, when young master pestered her, she was in her first year of high school. After that, she transferred to another school. She only transferred today. Could a person really change so much in 2 years? Not only in terms of appearance, but also in terms of bearing, he had become unapproachable. She held the hairpin in her hand and frowned as if she was thinking about something. At this moment, Yuan Hao asked, "Senior, do you still want this?" At this moment, how could Soo-won be in the mood to think about anything else? She quickly put down the hairpin and chased after Kim Yoon. Yuan Hao frowned, but he still put the hairpin away. The Jean family made their fortune in jewelry and jade, while the Yuan family made their fortune in antiques. Since his deskmate liked this hairpin, he would give it to her. Gong Yimou looked at Kim Yoon with admiration. Big brother, how are you so powerful? In fact, when Kim Yoon was writing, she did not look at the words at all. Instead, she was attracted to Kim Yoon. She was probably not alone because Kim Yoon's writing was really beautiful. That kind of settled elegance was a charm that could not be seen in modern society. Kim Yoon received Gong Yimou's admiring gaze and felt very sweet in his heart. Mo really thinks that I'm powerful. Seeing Gong Yimou nod without hesitation, he felt his vanity explode. In the past, when he met Mo it was always Mo who helped him. Although he had a talent for business and was good at singing and dancing, he knew very little about other things. Because of this, he felt inferior. Now, he was very good. He had learned a lot. Even in his dreams, he hoped that one day, he could become very powerful and protect her when she was weak. In the past, this was just a dream, but now, it had come true. He didn't need her to be strong. He just wanted to love her and pamper her. It was all for the sake of her. Pinching Gong Yimou's face, Kim Yoon slightly raised his eyebrows and could only say, Big brother can be even more powerful. Do you want to see? Yes. Gong Yimou looked up at him with wide eyes. That kind of sparkling eyes made Kim Yoon feel extremely proud. He was extremely glad that he had learned a lot later on and was able to perform in front of his beloved woman to make her smile. At a glance, he saw a classmate showing off his talent. There were many musical instruments beside him, and he was playing the flute. When Kim Yoon walked over, he was a little surprised. When he heard that Kim Yoon was here to borrow a zither, the other party revealed a strange expression. Zither was something that was usually learned by girls. This young master of the Kim Yoon knew how to play the zither. Thus, he quickly agreed. When Kim Yoon sat down in front of the zither, the stall owner suddenly realized that he was surrounded by girls. Unfortunately, the person in question only saw his sister. Mo, I'll play a song for you, okay? Gong Yimou quickly nodded. She didn't know that the young master knew how to play the zither. Kim Yoon slightly smiled. His slender fingers were as white as jade against the mahogany zither seat. He lowered his head and slightly adjusted a few notes. At that moment, the surrounding background seemed to disappear. It was as if they were not in the campus square, but in an ancient zither room. There was also a faint sandalwood scent rising from the side. The autumn afternoon sun warmly fell on the body of the youth wearing a white cotton shirt. It was clearly warm, but it was exceptionally dazzling. Although he was a youth, from the moment he played the first note, his entire aura changed. The quiet zither room seemed to have suddenly become empty. The zither was like the person. Everyone seemed to be able to imagine what kind of lonely environment he used to play the zither in when he was practicing. But slowly, the moment Gong Yimou frowned, the sound of the zither suddenly became lighter. It was as if it had broken through some kind of shackle, and everything was developing in a beautiful direction. Kim Yoon saw Gong Yimou slowly reveal a smile. She sat down in front of him in worship and looked at him. At that moment, he forgot how many people were around him. He only knew that a part of him that had always been missing was finally complete. When the song ended, everyone was still in a daze, including Gong Yimou. Kim Yoon pinched her face again and smiled dotingly. Lass, this song is for you. Gong Yimou finally came back to her senses and looked at him with sparkling eyes. Brother, what is this song called? When Kim Yoon heard this, he touched the strings of the zither. The last trace of loneliness also disappeared under the sunlight. His entire person was unbelievably gentle. This song is called A 1,000-Mile Search for Love. Fortunately, he found it. Only then did everyone come back to their senses. The sound of the zither just now was too beautiful, and so was the person. They were deeply immersed in it and could not extricate themselves. They could only applaud very hard to express their admiration for Kim Yoon. I've decided. From today onwards, young master is my idol. A girl said excitedly. Oh my God. How can he be so handsome? He's just like the handsome men in ancient costumes in the books. I don't care. I want to be his fan. The girls fell one after another. Strangely, the male students did not feel any jealousy. Perhaps it was because Kim Yoon's temperament was too gentle and not sharp at all. It made people admire him from the bottom of their hearts. Chapter 809. He was good-looking, had a good figure, had a good family background, had good grades, and was also multi-talented. He was simply not giving others a way out. Kim Yoon did not care about these. He ignored everyone's gazes and left with Gong Yimo. After walking for so long, must be thirsty. It just so happened that the juice he asked the servants to prepare could be put to good use. During the process, Kim Yoon did not even look at Soo Won, but Soo Won could hear her heart beating in disbelief. She had always liked mature and steady people who were brimming with talent. She hated people like Jin Yoon who ran amok and was ignorant and incompetent. But now, she felt that she did not know this person well enough. He seemed to have only shown the tip of the iceberg, but this tip was enough to surprise her. She suddenly felt that she did not want to break off the engagement. She still wanted to dig out the other party's secrets bit by bit. It was all her fault for being too anxious today. She had said such things without understanding the situation. Would he hate her? But when she thought of how much he used to like her, she felt smug again. If he was angry, she would just coax him. Gong Yimo drank her juice, completely unaware of what others were thinking. She also did not know that Kim Yoon had casually shown a few moves and instantly became the prince of the Platinum Academy. Kim Yoon saw that Gong Yimo had suddenly become quiet and could not help but ask. Is the juice not good? He looked at the weather. Although it's very hot today, girls can't eat cold food. You have to bear with it. Gong Yimo shook her head. No, the juice is delicious. At this moment, they were on the rooftop. Gong Yimo seemed to be thinking about a big problem as she held the juice with deep hatred. Then why do you look so bitter? Little cutie. Kim Yoon liked to tease her more and more. When he gently ravaged her, his beautiful eyes were so gentle that they glowed. Gong Yimo raised her head and looked at him. He was clearly still the eldest young master, but his appearance had changed a little. His temperament was completely different. Gong Yimo couldn't lie to herself anymore. The other party wasn't the real eldest young master. Or rather, the soul in the other party's body wasn't the eldest young master. The eldest young master was very irritable and impetuous, while her brother was very gentle. He was like water that had settled down, a pearl that shone with a restrained brilliance. Other than having good grades, eldest young master had nothing else going for him. Her brother, on the other hand, knew a lot of things. For example, playing the piano and calligraphy were not talents that could be learned overnight. But, what did it matter? Gong Yimo swallowed the words that were about to come out of her mouth. As long as the other party was good to her, what else did she have to fuss about? Fuss about where the original young master went. Sorry, she wasn't that noble. Therefore, she decided not to expose him and smiled again. Brother, I also want to learn talents. Why? Kim Yoon was slightly surprised. Gong Yimo said seriously, my brother is very powerful. As his sister, I have to be powerful too. Kim Yoon chuckled, be my sister. You just need to accompany me. No. Gong Yimo shook her head firmly, I must become strong. Her eyes flashed with determination. If she was weak, how could she be worthy of standing beside her brother? Moreover, if one day, someone found out about her brother's secret, how could she protect her brother? She didn't want to lose her brother. Kim Yoon saw how serious she was and patted her head. All right, if you want to learn, I will teach you. Gong Yimo nodded her head, I will also find a teacher to teach you. Kim Yoon suddenly remembered that the original body did not know these talents. He was shocked and looked at Gong Yimo's overly clear eyes. Was Immerse reminding him? If Immerse found out that he was not the original body, would she have any thoughts? But looking at Gong Yimo's usual expression, he felt that he was thinking too much. It seemed that he had to be more careful in the future. While they were enjoying the afternoon, an uninvited guest came to their house. Kim Yoon. Soo-won raised her head and walked over arrogantly. She had been looking for them for a long time, but she did not expect to see them here. Kim Yoon frowned slightly and said in a low voice, I said that I will tell my father about the engagement when I go back tonight. Is there anything else? Kim Yoon's words made the other party's face turn pale. What should she say? Should she say that she suddenly did not want to break off the engagement? That would be too embarrassing. But if she did not say it, what would she do if the engagement was really broken off? So, Soo-won glanced at Gong Yimo and ordered, you go down first. I have something to tell him. Before Gong Yimo could react, Kim Yoon was already standing in front of Gong Yimo, just say it. There is nothing shameful between you and me. His tough and cold attitude made Soo-won blush, you. Have you forgotten that you used to like me? Why, have you changed your target now? Have you taken a fancy to this burden? Don't forget that she is your sister. Kim Yoon frowned, feeling that this woman was very rude. You said it yourself that it was in the past. I don't like you now. Please don't appear in front of me again. Soo-won gritted her teeth when she heard Kim Yoon say that he did not like her anymore. You bastard. Do you think that you can break off the engagement just because you want to? Dream on. With that, she glared at Gong Yimo and ran away. Gong Yimo felt wronged. Did she have the ability to attract hatred? She was simply crazy. Kim Yoon frowned as he looked at Soo-won's back. In the morning, she looked as if she would embarrass him if he did not break off the engagement. In the afternoon, she went back on her words. Did she think that he, Kim Yoon, was someone that she could do whatever she wanted to him? Gong Yimo looked at Kim Yoon worriedly. Brother, is it okay? It's okay. Kim Yoon patted her head. I will deal with it. That woman had better not do anything, or he would teach her a lesson. However, the other party was obviously not honest. When he returned home in the afternoon, Kim Yoon found that his father, who was often missing, was also there. When Gong Yimo saw Jin Shin, she felt a little strange because Jin Shin looked at her with a meaningful gaze. You're back. Jin Shin sat on the sofa and said to Kim Yoon, sit down. Dad has something to tell you. Gong Yimo went upstairs consciously. Kim Yoon frowned and sat down. You want to break off the engagement? Seeing that Gong Yimo had left, Jin Shin went straight to the point. A trace of disgust flashed across Kim Yoon's eyes when he thought of Soo-won. She's the one who wants to break off the engagement. Jin Shin did not believe him. But that little girl called today and said that you want to break off the engagement. She also said that you want to break off the engagement because you like that little girl, Gong Yimo. When Jin Shin said this, he kept staring at Kim Yoon's expression. However, Kim Yoon was a person who had been an emperor. His heart skipped a beat, but he did not show it on his face. It was as if he had heard a joke. She dares to say that. Kim Yoon's brows furrowed in anger. This kind of person is really disgusting. Listen to it yourself. Kim Yoon did not explain much, but he took out his phone and played the conversation he recorded in the morning. Jin Shin did not expect Kim Yoon to record it. When he heard Su Wen's arrogant words in the recording, Jin Shin frowned. He was actually fooled by the other party. Chapter 8:10. The recording on the phone was still going on. Su Wen's arrogant voice was heard. Jin Chiao, if you're a man, go and break off the engagement. What era are we in now? Don't play the game of betrothal. Don't think that I'll be soft-hearted if you do this. I'm definitely breaking off this engagement. If you don't tell me when you go back today, I'll ask my father to come over in a few days. Kim Yoon saw that Jin Shin was unhappy, so he struck while the iron was hot and said disdainfully. I didn't expect her to be such a person. She wants me to break off the engagement, and she's complaining first. Is she afraid that you'll take revenge on her Su family if you find out? So, she wants to pretend to be a victim and say that I dumped her. Kim Yoon's words were reasonable, so Jin Shin could not help but think more. It seemed that the little girl named Su Wen was playing tricks. However, when he thought of Su Wen crying miserably on the phone, he could not help but say, is that really the truth? Kim Yoon snorted. Do you think I'd fake it? Does this kind of person who goes back on her words think I'm a fool? I was blind in the past to like such a person. Kim Yoon's anger was quite in line with the original body's style. Jin Shin thought for a moment. Then, the other party said that you liked that little girl. Was that also a lie? Kim Yoon frowned and glared at Jin Shin. What do you mean? How old is Mo? It wasn't easy for me to be a good brother and learn something good. You don't like me, do you? His cold expression was still very intimidating, and it dispelled all of Jin Shin's suspicions. Moreover, when he thought of Kim Yoon becoming like before, he had a headache. It was better now. Therefore, he immediately retreated and only asked, then what do you think now? Break off the engagement. Kim Yoon threw the phone on the coffee table in front of him. If they're being unreasonable, let them listen to this recording. It's as if I'm begging to marry her. It's not like all the women in the world are dead. Jin Shin had other thoughts because the Su family was not bad. However, seeing the displeasure on his son's face, he decided to let it go. After all, she was just a woman. Even if the Su family didn't want to marry her, there were plenty of other families who would. Thus, he nodded. All right, stop throwing a tantrum. Can you blame others for this? It's all because you were too much of a jerk in the past. Kim Yoon sneered, fine, it's all my fault, okay? Don't bother me if there's nothing important. Get someone to send dinner upstairs. Mo and I will eat upstairs. His honest words dispelled a lot of Jin Shin's doubts. Thinking of Gong Yimo's small appearance, he might have been overthinking. Kim Yoon went straight to his room. As soon as he entered the room, Gong Yimo was already waiting for him. She looked very worried. How was it, big brother? Kim Yoon smiled and squatted down to half-hug her. Who is big brother? It's just a woman, it's fine. Gong Yimo was relieved. Then, she showed a strange expression. That. Big brother doesn't like Su Wen anymore. Yeah, I don't like her anymore. Kim Yoon pulled Gong Yimo to the table. Gong Yimo frowned, will big brother like someone else in the future? Kim Yoon suddenly looked at her, why do you ask? Gong Yimo lowered her head a little shyly. If I'm always obedient, can big brother not like someone else? Kim Yoon's eyes lit up. Sitting on the leather chair, he hugged Gong Yimo and asked with a smile, Mo doesn't want me to like someone else. Yeah. Gong Yimo nodded vigorously. Big brother was her only big brother. Kim Yoon smiled even more happily, but big brother still has to get married. What if I have to have children? Gong Yimo sat on his lap and looked up at him with a serious expression. Must we get married? Kim Yoon nodded. Gong Yimo was conflicted. Then can I marry big brother? Kim Yoon smiled naughtily. Mo wants to marry big brother. Gong Yimo actually didn't quite understand the meaning of marriage. Does marriage mean we'll be together every day? Kim Yoon pinched her little nose, not only during the day, but also at night. Gong Yimo heaved a sigh of relief. That was no different from what she was doing now. So she nodded and said very heroically, Big brother, don't look for someone else. I'll marry you. Kim Yoon couldn't help but hug her tightly and chuckle in her ear. Mo, you must remember what you said tonight. Since Mo wants to marry me, I won't look for anyone else. Gong Yimo, who had no idea that she had been sold off, nodded, yeah. That's it, it's a promise. Kim Yoon smiled even more happily. The two of them had dinner together, tutored together, and slept together. Actually, childhood sweethearts were nothing more than that. Kim Yoon's marriage was still annulled. The other party didn't agree, so Jin Shin took out the recording. When he heard his daughter humiliating the other party, it was no wonder that Kim Yoon insisted on annulling the marriage. After Soo Wen found out about this, she burst into tears. She felt that Kim Yoon had a change of heart. A woman, even a young girl, had a very accurate sixth sense. However, she had done it herself. Now that things had come to this, there was no turning back. Soon, more than half a year had passed. Kim Yoon had taken the college entrance examination. Gong Yimo was very nervous. Although she knew that Kim Yoon would definitely do well in the exam, she couldn't help but feel nervous. The 13-year-old Mo had grown to 1.5 meters. She was considered tall among her peers. Every time Kim Yoon saw her, he felt as if his daughter was growing up. Seeing Gong Yimo rushing in and out, Kim Yoon smiled as he pulled her into his arms and hugged her. It's just the college entrance examination, not the battlefield. Why are you in such a hurry? Gong Yimo glared at him. Everyone else is nervous. Even if you're a straight-A student, shouldn't you act a little? When Kim Yoon heard this, his beautiful eyes blinked and revealed a frightened look. The college entrance examination is so scary. Sister, quickly protect me. Gong Yimo chuckled when she heard this. She was no longer in a hurry. She sat on Kim Yoon's lap and asked softly. Brother, which school do you want to go to? Kim Yoon raised his eyebrows slightly. Mo wants to go to the same school as me. Gong Yimo blushed a little when she heard this and nodded. At the thought of Kim Yoon's results, he would definitely go to school in the capital city. Even if Kim Yoon didn't go to the capital city, they would probably only see each other once a week in C City. How could Kim Yoon not know what Gong Yimo was thinking when he saw that she was suddenly in low spirits? In fact, he already had a plan in mind. He just didn't say it out loud. When the time came, he would prepare to give Mo a surprise. Don't worry. Mo's results are good. We will be together in the future. Gong Yimo nodded. However, she suddenly remembered that she still had 5 years to go before the college entrance examination. By the time she passed, her brother would have graduated. When Kim Yoon saw that she was suddenly disappointed, he seemed to have finally figured out the problem. Seeing her conflicted look, he couldn't help but kiss her little mouth. Gong Yimo pushed him. Brother, stop fooling around. Kim Yoon pretended to be sad. You let me kiss you in the past. Why can't I kiss you now? Gong Yimo lowered her head. Because Hua Hua and the rest said that only married couples can kiss like this. Kim Yoon saw that she was so cute and kissed her forehead. Brother, can you kiss me like this? Chapter 8:11. Gong Yimo pouted. She thought that it shouldn't be a problem for him to kiss her like this, but she still said unhappily, Brother, what should I do? Let me count. I'll take the college entrance exam, and you'll have graduated. Kim Yoon laughed. He rubbed Gong Yimo's face hard and hugged her tightly. When their eyes met, Gong Yimo was depressed, but Kim Yoon was happy. You don't want to be separated from me that much? Gong Yimo hesitated for a moment, but still nodded. What if you like someone else when I'm not around? What if you have another sister? Kim Yoon laughed and said very seriously. You can have many sisters, but you're the only one who can have a wife. His eyes were filled with tenderness. Gong Emo was careless and fell deeply into his doting gaze. Didn't you want to marry me? So, you're the one and only. He was good-looking, and he was getting better and better. Gong Yimo was stunned and said seriously, Brother, you have to wait for me. I'll grow up soon. Kim Yoon kissed her forehead again and sighed. There's still 5 years. Gong Yimo thought that he was talking about the college entrance exam in 5 years. She was depressed again. It seemed that they would have to be separated for a long time. Kim Yoon saw that she was depressed and said bewitchingly. Do you not want to leave me? Yes. Gong Yimo nodded hard. I have an idea. Gong Yimo looked up at him hopefully. Let's go abroad after you graduate from junior high. Gong Yimo was happy the whole day. Although her brother was about to take the college entrance exam, they could go abroad together in 2 years. When she was happy, her whole body seemed to glow, and she firmly attracted the attention of the students in the class. Hua Hua was Gong Yimo's only friend. At this moment, she ran over and asked curiously. Momo, what's wrong? Why are you so happy? Gong Yimo grinned. It's nothing. I just thought of a joke. Yuan Hao saw her smile when she turned around. Although the smile wasn't directed at him, he could still hear his own heartbeat. Back then, he had given the hairpin to his deskmate, but she had rejected it. He had been very sad, but he had quickly cheered up. Anyway, he was already very satisfied to be deskmates with Gong Yu, wasn't he? However, Gong Yimo had always been indifferent to Yuan Hao. Their relationship was only slightly better than the other students. Naturally, she did not understand what he was thinking. Soon, it was Kim Yoon's college entrance examination. As expected, Kim Yoon was admitted to the best university in the city, but he told Jin Shin that he wanted to take over the family business when he was still in university. Jin Shin was very happy, and agreed to let him go to university in City B, even though Kim Yoon could only come back once a week. Gong Yimo was very disappointed, but she turned her disappointment into motivation. I've been working hard to learn and enrich myself. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, Gong Yimo was 16 years old. The age of 16 was a very clear dividing line. According to the law, those who had a source of income at the age of 16 were considered adults. In the past 2 years, Gong Yimo had been eagerly accepting all kinds of knowledge. She had worked hard to be outstanding and even more outstanding. Slowly, everyone said that she was outstanding, but she knew in her heart that it was not enough. Little did she know that she had become the pearl in the eyes of others. Recently, Yuan Hao had been feeling that he couldn't pay attention in class. His gaze couldn't help but follow Gong Yimo. As he wished, they had been deskmates for 3 years in junior high. However, they were only deskmates. Other than being closer to her than others, there was nothing else he could do. This was because Gong Yimo was like a bookworm. She didn't pay attention to the outside world and only focused on reading the books. However, he knew that Gong Yimo wasn't a bookworm. Her eyes were very bright. Other than studying knowledge, she was also involved in many extracurricular subjects. She knew very well what she wanted. She also knew that she had to have the corresponding strength to get everything she wanted. This side of her was too dazzling. Not only Yuan Hao, but many people wanted to run over and curry favor with Gong Yimo. Gong Yimo had rejected them all. Yuan Hao didn't want to be the one who was rejected, so he had been restraining himself. However, seeing each other every day, he had a feeling that he couldn't control himself. Therefore, during the class break, he suddenly asked. "That. Classmate Gong, will you continue to study here in high school?" His eyes flickered. He didn't dare to look at her directly. Gong Yimo glanced at him. She had a good impression of this taciturn deskmate. She smiled slightly. "Just call me Gong Yimo." Little did she know that her smile had hit the bullseye. Yuan Hao felt that he couldn't breathe. How could his deskmate be so beautiful? His face was flushed red. He didn't have the courage to continue talking to her. He hurriedly said that he was going to the washroom and ran away. Gong Yimo was baffled. In the washroom, Yuan Hao looked at himself in the mirror with disdain. "You don't talk to others like this. Why are you so scared when talking to her? You're like this, you're like this. How am I going to woo her?" Yuan Hao was a little embarrassed and frustrated. Yuan Hao's family was considered quite wealthy in High City. Although it couldn't be compared to the Jin family, it was still one of the best. Moreover, he wasn't bad-looking. He had thick eyebrows and big eyes. At the age when young boys and girls were experiencing their first awakening of love, there were already many girls who secretly expressed their feelings for him. He was also a favored son in the eyes of others. However, in front of Gong Yimo, he was too weak. Therefore, he left a taciturn image for Gong Yimo. He secretly encouraged himself. "Today, I must ask her where she went to high school." He still wanted to be her deskmate. After Yuan Hao ran away, Hua Hua ran over with a smitten look on her face. "How was it? How was it?" She saw Yuan Hao run away with a red face. She thought that the silly boy had finally confessed. "What do you mean?" Gong Yimo glanced at her. Hua Hua's glasses couldn't hide the gossipy look in her eyes. "He confessed to you." Gong Yimo frowned. Confessed. Gong Yimo had been bullied when she was young. She didn't have time to watch television or the internet because she had endless chores to do and endless bullying. After her mother took her away, she was also walking on thin ice. Besides reading, she didn't have time to do anything else. The past 2 years were even worse. Her daily schedule was very full. She wanted to split herself into 2 people. It was even more impossible for her to come into contact with any messy news. All of this conveyed a message. The 16-year-old Gong Yimo was no different from the 12-year-old her when it came to understanding men and women. The only gossip she knew was from Hua Hua. She only listened to it occasionally. Hua Hua was stunned. "Have you become stupid from reading too much? Yuan Hao obviously likes you." Chapter 8:12. Like me? Gong Yimo's eyes widened as she pointed at herself. Hua Hua rolled her eyes. "You're really slow." "That's right, you never watch idol dramas. People like you who don't watch TV or surf the internet are extinct in modern times." Gong Yimo was a little embarrassed. "I don't have time, right? Besides, you must be mistaken about liking someone." "I'm mistaken." Hua Hua was feeling gloomy when she saw Yuan Hao coming back from the washroom after plucking up his courage. She pulled him over. "Class rep, tell me. Do you like Momo?" Yuan Hao was still in a daze, but when he heard Hua Hua's words, the heat that had not completely subsided instantly flared up. Yuan Hao stood there with his eyes wide open, not knowing what to do. Fortunately, his classmates had all gone to eat, otherwise, he would have found a hole to hide in. Gong Yimo looked at his red face curiously and could not help but say, "Class rep, your face is so red that it's about to bleed." In all honesty, she was just telling the truth. She did not have any intention of teasing him, but it instantly ignited Yuan Hao. He straightened his body like a piece of wood, looked at Gong Yimo with his big eyes, and said anxiously, I didn't. It's not me." He did not know whether to admit or deny it. His heart was beating extremely fast, and he felt that he was about to suffocate under Gong Yimo's clear gaze. Gong Yimo tilted her head slightly and looked at him strangely, but she did not know how cute her action was. Tilted head kill. It was actually tilted head kill. Yuan Hao immediately closed his eyes tightly. If he continued to look, he would definitely die from lack of oxygen. This was an opportunity. Tell her that you treat her differently. Say it out loud. He encouraged himself over and over again in his heart, then suddenly opened his eyes. Just as he was about to make up his mind to say it out loud, a voice suddenly interrupted. "What are you doing?" Gong Yimo's eyes lit up. "Brother." As she spoke, she immediately ran towards the door with a look of surprise. "Brother, why are you back? It's not the weekend today." Kim Yoon smiled. "Something came up at the company, so I came to see you." Kim Yoon's appearance was like a gentle light that instantly illuminated the entire classroom. Hua Hua couldn't help but cover her mouth to suppress her exclamation. It was actually Prince Jean. He was indeed as handsome as the rumors said. Ever since Kim Yoon graduated, the Platinum School had left behind a legend about him. His previous irritable and domineering attitude was no longer known to the public. Everyone knew that the young master was a gentle, handsome, multi-talented, and perfect man who had a sister complex. As soon as he saw Kim Yoon, the courage that Yuan Hao had mustered up dissipated. He knew that the other party treated Gong Yimo very well. Who knew, he might even be his future brother-in-law. Thinking of this, he hurriedly greeted Kim Yoon. "Hello, Senior Kim." Hua Hua hurriedly went up and shouted excitedly, Senior. My name is Ling Hua, I'm Momo's good friend." Kim Yoon smiled and looked at them. They were still too young and their emotions were written all over their faces. He glanced at Yuan Hao and nodded. Then, he said to Hua Hua, "Mo, often talks about you." Then, he looked at Yuan Hao. "I heard that you also take good care of Mo, Thank you." His words directly expressed the difference between being close and distant. As he and Mo, were one, he could thank him on behalf of Mo, for taking care of her. When he saw Yuan Hao, he was reminded of himself back then. He liked her but did not dare to say it out loud. He suppressed it and in the end, only lost her. A sharp look flashed across his eyes. This time, he would definitely not hand Mo, over to anyone. However, Yuan Hao did not understand the meaning behind his words and even said foolishly, it's okay. He glanced at Gong Yimo and felt a little regretful. However, he still said happily, it's what I should do, should. Kim Yoon raised his eyebrows in annoyance. How about this? Mo, and I haven't seen each other in a long time. I'll take her away first. Next time, if there's a chance, I'll treat the two of you to a meal together to express my gratitude. Kim Yoon's voice was also very pleasant. Hua Hua looked intoxicated and quickly pushed Gong Yimo and said, "It's okay, it's okay. Hurry up and go. Have a good meal." Kim Yoon gave Hua Hua a grateful smile and directly electrocuted her. When she came back to her senses, she had already been taken away by Kim Yoon. Hua Hua held her face and sighed. "If only I had a brother like him." Then, she said, No. If I had such a perfect brother, why would I like anyone else? Wouldn't I be alone for the rest of my life? When Yuan Hao heard this, he felt even more disappointed. He looked at Gong Yimo and Kim Yoon chatting and laughing. She looked so happy. Did she not like anyone else? I'll be more outstanding than senior. Yuan Hao suddenly said, causing Floey to scratch his head in confusion. Gong Yimo's eyes sparkled. "Brother, are you going back today?" Kim Yoon hadn't seen her for a few days and missed her a lot. When he heard this, he deliberately asked, "Does Mo want me to go back?" He suddenly leaned in closer. His eyes seemed to contain autumn water, which made his cinnabar mole look especially seductive. "You're so annoying, brother." Gong Yimo pushed him because she realized that her brother's eyes were electrifying. When she was stared at, she felt numb. Kim Yoon smiled even more beautifully. "Mo hasn't said if she wants me to go back." Gong Yimo glared at him but still said, "Brother, stay with me tonight, okay?" Kim Yoon patted her head and asked another question. "Mo, that boy likes you, right?" Gong Yimo was stunned. Liking someone gave her a weird feeling. She hadn't experienced it before, so she couldn't tell the difference between liking someone and her mother. "Maybe," she answered uncertainly. After all, this was what Hua Hua said and the class monitor didn't say. "Then do you like him?" Gong Yimo frowned. "Like? How much do you like him?" Kim Yoon suddenly stopped. In the school garden, he turned sideways and looked at the girl in front of him. "Do you like him?" This time, Gong Yimo didn't hesitate and said directly, "Yes." Kim Yoon's eyes suddenly became much gentler. "Then do you have such feelings for that boy?" Gong Yimo shook her head decisively. Kim Yoon was satisfied. He admitted that he was a little jealous just now. The other party was young and good-looking. They could be considered childhood sweethearts. However, he was 5 years older than Mo and was Mo's brother. What if Mo didn't like him anymore? But seeing that the little girl in front of him still only liked him, he was satisfied and threw the unhappiness to the back of his mind. This time, everything about Mo was under his control. He wouldn't allow any accidents. Moreover, they were going abroad soon. When that time came, no one would be able to interfere with them. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.